West Falmouth for permission to rough grade the existing roadway, give the road a 2% cross grade going away from the wetlands where possible, and add less than 1 inch of native dense fill, fine grade, and then compact the roadway after wetting.
Yes, Madam Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance to June 16th.
So moved.
Second.
Before we take a vote, I have a question.
I do too.
Is this actually moving along? And if it's not, I would request for you to set up a meeting.
They submitted part of their documentations today. We were waiting for the engineering documents today as well. I know that the homeowners association submitted documents today, so they were asking to present next week.
Okay, if it turns out we don't present next week, the following week, would you please schedule a meeting?
Yes.
I would like to move this along. It's taking far too much of staff's time.
Yes, it has.
And then I have one question, only because I drove down that road today. And it's to the point where I don't even know if a fire truck could get down that road.
Okay.
I don't know if the town's been down there at all to do anything, but I haven't been down there in like 2 months. And it was pretty rough.
Fire trucks can go on fairly rough.
Are you talking about branches, or are you talking about?
No, I'm talking about,
Yeah, the holes.
you can't even go a half a mile
Okay,
an
guys.
hour. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay.
We have a motion in a second.
Motion and a second on the table. Are there any further questions? Any questions from the audience? Okay, hearing none. Motion on the table is for a continuance to June 16th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Kevin and Susan Glynn, 20 Green Harbor Drive.
June 16th.
Green Harbor Drive, East Falmouth. No, it couldn't be the 16th.
Couldn't be the 16th, because today's the 6th.
How about the 13th?
13th?
June 13th.
Okay.
Kevin and Susan Glynn, 20 Green Harbor Drive, East Falmouth, for permission to pump, fill, and abandon or remove the existing leach pit and install a new Title V sewage disposal system.
Yes, Madam Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until June 27th.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? Okay, motion on the table is continuance to June 27th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Request to continue under a notice of intent. Paul Yankee, 194 Edgewater Drive East, East Falmouth, for permission to replace two 10-inch existing pilings and to install two new 10-inch pilings.
Yes, Madam Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until June 27th.
So moved.
Second. Question.
Question?
How many continuances he had?
Second or third? 194.
This is the 4th, because I have May 16th. I don't know, I wasn't here. We had the original hearing on the 11th of April,
We had another one.
May 9th, then May 16th, and now,
Well, so it's the second one after the last hearing.
Okay.
So would you
Yes.
just communicate that?
There seems to
Thank
be
you.
some foot dragging here that shouldn't be.
Okay, there's a motion and a second on the table, right, Susan? Okay, to a continuance to June 27th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Minutes, 4/25/2012. Anyone read these?
I don't have them.
Okay, then we'll have that next week.
Yeah, I just picked my packet up today, I'm
I
sorry.
didn't see them. Request for determination of applicability. William Post, care of Bayberry Road Real Estate Trust, 36 Bayberry Road, East Falmouth, for permission to construct 3 additions, expand the existing deck, and remove a dead oak tree. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, staff reviewed the project. We're recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? Just a reminder, if those of you who are here for an RDA, a negative determination means you can go ahead with what you've discussed with the staff. Okay, motion on the table is to accept staff's recommendation of a negative determination. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed?
Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved.
And Madam Chair, may I comment on my opposition?
Wasn't unanimous, there was a little
Oh,
opposition.
sorry. Well, you can comment, but it's been voted.
I know, I just
Yeah.
want to explain perhaps the reason for my negative vote, and that's because there are some outstanding violations on this property. And as I think I mentioned at a previous meeting, I really think that we need to put an item on our agenda where we tighten up a little bit and make it a part of our regulations that we will not permit any new work when there's a long list of outstanding violations on a property. And because I believe that, that's why I voted against permitting any additional work at this point in time. In the future, if anyone agrees with my position on this, I'd appreciate your support.
Okay. Next one. Michael Bullard, 47 Miami Avenue, for permission to upgrade with a new Title V sewage disposal system, reconstruct the back steps and paved driveway, install a drainage system and native plants, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping.
Yes, Madam Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until June 13th.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions on the board? And any questions in the audience? Okay, motion on the table is for a continuance to June 13th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Kevin and Susan Glynn, 20 Green Harbor Drive, is continued to June 27th. And Michael Diaz, Manny, I know that. 15 Amvets Avenue, Falmouth, for permission to construct a deck, remove invasive vegetation, and plant and maintain a native tree.
Yes, Madam Chairman, the staff has reviewed the project. We're recommending a -2 under the bylaw, and -3 under the state with the resource area boundaries.
So moved.
Second.
Did you get that, Susan? 2 motions, 2 seconds? Okay, any questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table, which is to accept staff's recommendation of a negative determination, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Yep, thank you. Continued request for determination of applicability. Black Beach Harbor Head Association is continued to next week. Geraldine Klein Robinar, 217 Sipawicet Road and Langley Road, map 3710-015-073A, Falmouth, for permission to vista prune.
Yes, Madam Chairman, at this time, the staff is recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed, and the recommendation should follow those written in the staff report.
So moved.
Through 8, that just basically goes through what is allowed to be pruned in accordance with your vista pruning guidelines, but it's very site-specific.
Okay, there's a motion and a second on the table. Are there any questions in the board? Any questions from the audience?
Yes, I'd like to speak to that.
Phil?
My name is Phil Williams. I'm a citizen and a taxpayer of Falmouth. I am in favor of the Conservation Commission granting these people a view easement. This is a matter of principle, for I know that the view easement section of the Falmouth Wetlands Protection Act should be trashed. There are 3 reasons for scrapping the view easement section. First, there is no scientific evidence that difference in height between growth that is 3 feet in height and between growth that is greater than 3 feet in height substantially and irreversibly destroys adjoining wetlands. Second, views of lakes, rivers, oceans, and their wetlands contribute to the well-being of all viewers, whether property owners or abutters or the common citizens of Falmouth. This well-being is so concrete in nature that real estate assessors put a value on water views. Water views double or triple property values. Property with potential water views are expensive, So the more expansive the water views, the higher is our tax base. Every erosion of a water view erodes our tax base and requires that we common citizens pay higher real estate taxes. Third, members of the Conservation Commission have themselves stated that the matter of view easements is a system of punishment and reward. For example, one member objected to the tree planting of a petitioner who wished to plant trees to the right and left of his property in order to retain a clear view in the center of his property. Her objection was, it's not fair that we punish your neighbors with trees and reward you with a view. It is possible that the engineers, landscapers, and lawyers who appear before you are constrained in their presentations for fear of being punished. If they are punished, their client loses and they go out of business. For these three reasons, the lack of scientific evidence of overwhelming need, the erosion of our property tax base, and the potential for abuse of objectivity in granting easements, I'm in favor of granting this easement, although I have no use whatsoever of the petitioners. Thank you.
Okay, I believe we have a vote on the table. Is that right? Okay. All in favor of the recommendation of staff, which is a negative determination, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any
Abstention.
abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Okay,
Madam Chair, before we go on,
yes.
could I just request that the gentleman submit a copy of his presentation to us for the record?
Yeah, Phil, can you give us a copy of that and date it? Thank you. Request for a hearing under a notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are heard simultaneously under the authority of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. First is Frank Bauer, 145 Seapit Road, Becoit, for permission to replace the existing 45 linear foot long concrete block retaining wall with a vinyl sheet piling wall and landing, remove a brick walkway and timber post, after the fact approval of a 78 square foot patio to install restoration and mitigation plantings and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, we did receive a request for continuance until June 27th. There's some issues that the staff would like to go over with the applicant and the representative.
So move.
Second.
Okay, any questions? Any questions in the audience? This is a continuance. Motion on the table is a continuance to June 27th. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Stuart Rothman, care of 32 Langley Road Nominee Trust, 32 Langley Road, Falmouth, for permission to raise, R-A-Z-E, the existing dwelling and construct a 5-bedroom, single-family house with attached garage, decks, patios, install an in-ground swimming pool, spa, outdoor shower, landscape retaining walls, dry walls, utilities, driveway, mitigation plantings, maintain the existing subsurface irrigation system, repair the existing stone riprap retaining wall, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I'll save any of my comments until after Mr. McGrath.
Good evening, Mike.
My name is Mike McGrath. I'm a registered engineer and registered professional land surveyor. I work for Holmes & McGrath. We prepared the plans and the notice of intent. This site is located on Gunning Point Avenue at the intersection of Langley Road. Langley Road is a dirt road up to a certain point, then a path down to the Association Beach. Sipawissett Road is generally over in this direction. The lot has frontage on Gunning Point Road and also on Langley Road. The wetland resources are Buzzards Bay, which is land under the ocean, land containing shellfish. There's a beach here. There's a coastal bank that's been altered by the construction of riprap. There's land subject to coastal storm flowage, that there's a velocity zone that comes across like this, and then there's an A zone that comes across here. There's an existing house that I've shown in dashed, and what the proposal is to tear the house down and build a new structure. The new structure is actually shifted landward. The limit of jurisdiction is right through here, so there's going to be work in jurisdiction. The work is a proposed pool, a permanent stone patio, there's a small spa there, there's a walkway, and a retaining wall with specimen plantings. Now, there is a total of 288 square feet of additional impervious area in your resource area buffer zone B. So we have to propose double that, which is 584 square feet. The plan shows in 3 different areas a total of 600 square foot of new mitigation plantings. There's a portion here that fills in a irregular spot here. There's a portion that straightens out a dip in the existing vegetation. We're proposing a tree here, and then there is an additional planting here. We will disturb some plants when we install this, and we will replace some of the, reinstall some of the plants here. There is an existing riprap that's partially collapsed in an area about here, and then here you can see it's distressed. We have filed also to do work that is shown more or less in the diagram here, where there's a trench installed at the top to intercept the runoff from the lawn. Then there will be a series of stones placed into the voids in the riprap. It starts with very small stones, increases to larger stones, and then there's some track rock put in place. So these repairs are shown on the diagram, and the repairs go from here to here. I was asked earlier today to describe why I thought the notice of intent was complete. There was an assertion by someone that I should have had an assent from Salt Pond Area Bird Sanctuaries. So I've given you a letter that basically describes that there is a very specific written description that comes up to this point, goes across this line, and comes back around. I call this the dimension line. All of the work that's proposed on the site is within the dimension line, or the land that's clearly described in the deeds. So my opinion is that I have properly filed this, that the work that's described is all on land of Mr. Rothman. I further opine that due to the wording of the deeds that my client owns the beach anyways, there is a right-of-way that the residents, or some of the residents in the subdivision, have the right to pass and repass. Accompanying me tonight is the client, Stu Rothman, the landscape architect, Jennifer, and of course, Denise, I'm sorry, middle-aged moment, Denise Benholi. So, are there any specific questions that we can answer concerning the application?
Jen? Okay. Court, I think this is yours.
It's not mine, but I have no questions.
Oh. Is it somebody want to claim this?
It was, no, I don't think it was Mary. I don't know.
We'll just go to Ed.
I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead.
one thing. Mr. McGrath submitted his letter, and I will submit
It was Arthur's.
Oh, okay.
letters from Salt Pond Area Bird Sanctuaries regarding the deed and the deed itself for the record. That information was given to the staff. And I know there is some concerns on whether or not appropriate property owners had given permission, since there is a disagreement isn't the word, but confusion over who actually holds title to the land. The council has advised to do that and do not make these types of decisions and base your decision solely on the land.
Ed,
You have two questions, I guess. One is rather simple and straightforward, the shower here. I think I'd like to ask for a little bit more detail on the shower. I mean, it's shown as something very small and innocuous, and I just want to make sure that when the project is undertaken, it doesn't turn out to be something much more than we might have anticipated. So I'd just like a little bit of the specs on that.
There's an existing outdoor shower right here, which is at the top of the stone steps, and it's up against the property line. There's a note that it'll be rebuilt. It's going to be rebuilt in the same footprint.
Okay, well, you're saying the same footprint. That wasn't in anything that I read, but perhaps we would have a condition then that we'd just like to have a photograph of that beforehand, so that we know when the project is done, that the footprint hasn't grown.
I'd be happy to give you the dimensions and a photograph.
All right, thank you. My second issue maybe is a little bit more significant. I have some questions about with the riprap repair, I have some questions about elevations, because you're showing some numbers here, and I'm trying to compare them to what's on the plan in front of us, which basically shows an elevation of a coastal bank at, I guess, 10 feet, but you're showing this riprap being repaired to something higher than that. So I'm a little bit confused.
This section is the collapsed section, and it shows that the elevation of the top of the stones is more or less 11 feet, and I think if you look at that, that's consistent with the existing, and he's showing the elevation 14.5, which is consistent with the remaining section. What I described to you is there's a section in here that is more or less it's still intact, but there are places that have failed, and there's another section where it's all slumped down. And so the proposal is at what it shows
it's
on this section.
to move it up to cover all that. You saw that eroded area? So it's to move it up to the level of the...
But the coastal bank, it says, I'm looking at something that says the coastal bank is 10, and it's proposed to make the riprap 11, so that's higher. At least, to the east.
Well, you see a 10, you
on the
don't see
eastern
where
end
the
here.
11 is.
If you want, that would be a suitable condition to be no higher than the existing grade. I understand what you're saying. It does say 11.
Yeah, no higher than
And when
the
you look
existing
here,
grade would be very satisfactory.
yeah, it's probably 11 where he drew the section.
Yeah.
That would be another condition, and that's perfectly acceptable. Thank you.
Well, as familiar as I am with my town, I always am delighted to find another little gem. It was nice to go down through Langley Road to this property. I appreciate the fact that they're drawing the project back. They've made the mitigation correctly. The shower, I lifted up some of the happy crap that grew over it. It's a terrazzo base type thing. It's approximately 3 by 3, something like that, with a drain in the middle of it.
Right,
I wouldn't see it being a big issue at all.
as long as it doesn't grow.
I would doubt that it would, particularly with the testimony that Mr. McGrath has given us. And I look forward to seeing this underway. Thank you.
I just have one quick question, Mike. Is that a dry well? A new dry well? You have a new dry well over on the left-hand side of the property, in front of the house?
To the west.
Yeah, sort of right up there,
By a tree.
by a tree. Isn't that, it's just a little close to that tree. I mean, it could just be moved out a little bit.
Right by your,
I understand, yes. What he's done is he's moved it away from, there's an existing cesspool there that they're going to backfill. So I understand. If we will relocate that by bringing it in closer, he's trying to, there's too
Yeah,
many...
I see what the constraints are
Yeah.
there. But I just want to save that tree, is my point.
I'd be happy to put on the plan that that tree be saved. We have taken steps to save this tree, but we haven't identified the same steps around that other tree.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Maureen?
Mike, where you're going to do where the erosion is, are you doing repair where that erosion is?
Yes?
Okay, what are you going to do with all that vegetation that's there? Are you going to replace it afterwards?
We will have to replace anything that's disturbed.
Okay, so it will probably be,
It's a
yeah.
condition, too.
Okay, we'll condition that. And then,
Got that, Jen?
you were just saying you're putting in that trench because of the runoff from the lawn to prevent, obviously, a hydraulic pressure behind that wall or erosion behind the wall.
Well, the second thing it's going to do is it'll expose the voids so they can put the stones behind.
Okay, so it's a would it be wise to plant that, since that seems to be an erosion issue there, and if you have sheeting off from the lawn headed down, that...
I mean, like make a little swale?
Well, I know, I'm just thinking of planting a
I-
buffer.
I really hesitate because when we fill it with stone, it'll appear to be full, and then the way the stone will work is that it'll actually sink, and we'll have to go back and add some later. So I hesitate to say that we can put plants in there.
Well, I wasn't thinking about putting plants where you're putting your trench drain. I was thinking about putting plants landward of the trench drain to take up the nutrients and the runoff that you just talked about, that it would slow everything down and capture it.
I was
Anyway.
trying to do two things, the major reason I was putting that in there is so that if you look at that wall, there are places where there are voids
Yes.
that are going to be obvious, and I believe that when we dig this out and we do it a little bit of time, we'll see voids and we'll fill it with stone. That was the only reason I was putting that in.
Okay.
We actually don't want any plants in the view.
Oh, I understand that. I mean, I wouldn't say that you wanted to plant trees or things like that, but anyway. The other question is, why are you putting mulch in that proposed filter fabric? It says, is it, I've never seen mulch underneath, that's all. It
The
says-
reason that we put mulch in is that in order to get rid of any dissolved nitrogen, especially if it's in the form of nitrate, the only way to get rid of it is mix it with a carbon that is available and also in anaerobic conditions, and that will happen in mulch.
Yep, sawdust and mulch. And again, plants would take up those nutrients too. Am I correct? Okay.
The lawn will take up as much as the
As the
plants.
plants, okay.
The lawn is
As a
plants.
plant, yeah.
You make a distinction between plants and lawn.
Okay, and the last
is-
We
question,
make a
dangerous.
distinction between woody native plants and lawn.
and then the last question is just on the landscape plan. The legend that they had, I don't know what CPs or CAs are.
This is Jennifer Malin.
Hi, Jennifer.
Should tell you.
They weren't in your legend anywhere.
Good evening, I'm Jennifer Malilla, Centerline Studios Landscape Architecture. I don't know if this is on. If you look at the mitigation plant list, which is the second one,
Yeah.
at the bottom,
I do?
the CP is Comptonia, and the CA is Clethra.
It's not on my plan. Sorry, I'm looking at yours, and you have a lot more than I do. I only have 3. I only have Bayberry, Beach Plum, and Virginia Rose in the mitigation, so maybe you have more. Okay, that's fine. I looked at them. So what was the CA again? We need that for the record then.
Yes, you can have this.
So CA is Clethra. Yep.
And then the Comptonia is the CP. And there should be MP before.
I have MP. I have MP.
Maureen, can you check and make sure there's a copy of that plan in the file?
It just didn't print from, because there's the title, and there's the bottom page.
Because I don't have that on my plan.
It's the same as this
May
one.
10th, 2012.
No, I don't have it either.
Is that the same
That
date?
is-
Okay.
So you can just, yeah, this is the same.
It might be on the original. No, it's not. So we
No,
need
it's
that
not.
plan.
We need that.
I think it just didn't print for some reason. I don't know why. This is a PDF, and this is a CAD file. It's the same plan.
You're talking to somebody that doesn't do email, so I just saw it wasn't
So
there.
I can leave this.
So we need that.
Will you give it to us?
And,
You can keep the board.
and we do, just so you know, when we deliberate, that the plantings are in the lawn. And that was all. Thank you.
What's the date on it?
There's nothing else on it.
May 10. May 10.
I'm all done. I
I
said
got one
thank you.
from May 16th.
All done. Sorry, but I was doing something.
May 10th.
Mike?
General comment.
And I'm saying received May 16th. That's different.
Well, that's the receipt, the date of the 10th.
Yeah, but it was just different.
That's your, thank you, you're done.
That's it?
That's twice this year.
You have it,
Two
through the
two
year.
different commissioners.
you have it in your book? You have to have questions from Ted, though.
It was clearly staked and understood it fairly well, understood the riprap fairly well. Yeah, I didn't see so much of the superficial runoff being the problem, but I guess Mike was explaining that that was from the wave chop coming in and taking things out. So that bank of stone is going to be a supply to keep that from the void coming through. Now that we know that that's Comptonia, I'm not really crazy about it being down here near the top of the coastal bank. But from everything else I see, everything else looks pretty good as far as the planting, so. And I understand sort of what they're doing here with the pool. The pool is really the only structure with the stone surface and the hot tub, and the rest is all plantings again. And those are all, I guess, on our list? Or not? They can't
By
be
the
used for
pool?
mitigation? Yeah,
No, they're all ornamental.
yeah.
Not all, I think there was some bayberry in there.
Improvement criteria. All right, that's it for me.
Okay. Okay, any other questions? Fine.
It's yours.
Put that in. Give me the landscape plan.
Hold on just a second, Mike.
We're putting the proper plan into the file for you.
There it is.
And this is the one that goes up.
Okay. Ed brought up a couple of questions, but they can be addressed through conditions. Does anybody else feel they need any more information? Then we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
Okay, now, any questions from the audience? Michael?
Hi, Michael Eder. I'm glad to see the commission remembers me. As you're aware, this is now the third riprap project we've had that I've come before the board. That is, the riprap is what I believe beyond the ownership bounds of this property in a right-of-way to our neighborhood. What makes this project unique is that this is a repair of a riprap, whereas the first time the riprap actually is pre-existing. So I'm pleased to see that. You're actually repairing. I did have a couple of questions I thought maybe you could answer, and Ms. McKay could answer for me. The plan shows this as, and I may have missed this because I came a little bit late, but it shows it as a temporary riprap repairs. What is it denoted as temporary riprap repairs?
Right.
Why don't I ask my three questions, they can answer them.
All right,
The other
perhaps
question-
Mike could answer.
Okay. The other question I have is that we have under our zoning, a zoning bylaw requiring a special permit when there's riprapping. I don't see any exception to that with regards to repairing riprap. So my question, probably most of it is, okay, is will this need a special permit from the Board of Selectmen? I don't believe it has an existing special permit, and I don't see anything in the bylaw that exempts an existing riprap. So it's a question I'm asking.
You're asking in regards to the zoning bylaw, I would have to check on
Yeah.
that, Mike. I don't know that question.
And then the only last question I have, and I know I'm taking the mic, but the question I have is, this retaining wall, there's a road here, a private road that we all have access to, and that retaining wall is right up against that. What would ever happen if we build, as a neighborhood, build that road? I was just curious to see or look like structures like a wall and other things right up against that wall, that road that's shown on the plan.
The wall by the pool area,
So the wall by the pool, there shows,
and a little bit further back.
yeah, there's a bunch of things in the plan that are right up against the road. I think it says proposed retaining wall, proposed pool.
Well, you know, I think that's a zoning rather than us too.
Right. Okay. I was just wondering, I mean, if we ever do clear that road for some reason, what would happen to the structure?
Yeah.
It's a 40-foot easement, that's a common private way easement.
Right.
So 40 feet in a road's going to get 10 feet on either side. The road needs walled outside the easement of the road.
Right, but you'd place the road wherever it made sense within that easement. So, okay.
Easement's down the middle.
Yeah. Okay, just curious. Thank you.
Do you want Mike to answer your question?
Yes, I'd love to.
Mike?
Questions, the section, this has a label temporary. Perhaps that's unfortunate. That's one of our standard sections. Normally, when we rebuild riprap, we take it all apart, but in this location, we chose not to do that. The riprap has been in existence since sometime between 1975 and 1978. I believe that's the date that we got the new photographs. So I believe that the riprap is been authorized just because under the zoning, anything that's been in existence more than 10 years can exist. There's no way that there can be any enforcement under zoning. So the bottom line is, I think they can go out and maintain that structure without going to the board, to the selectmen for a special permit. The other point is, we have the right to go right up to the sideline because the zoning bylaw of the town of Falmouth actually excludes retaining walls. So you can build a retaining wall up to the sideline, and since we're not going into the right-of-way, we're not interfering with the use of the right-of-way. So I think I've answered the three questions.
Okay, you didn't have to answer all of them. We only wanted the temporary question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wow.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? You have one.
I had
Mike?
one, for Mike, actually, and it just made me think when I was looking at the mitigation. In our bylaw, are we supposed to have it closest to the resource?
Yes.
Okay, so why are none of these closest to the resource?
They are all in an A zone.
All right,
They're all in an A zone.
They're all in an A
Regulations
zone.
Okay, I was just
state
thinking-
It's close to the resource area.
all right.
More is correct.
There's a motion and a second on the table to close this hearing and take it under advisement. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you. Did you, oh, was that yours? Oh, no wonder I didn't know how to use it. Okay, Robert, either Wareham or Wareham?
Wareham.
Wareham.
Where, yeah?
That's how I thought Wareham was pronounced when I first got here. 78 Associates Road, West Falmouth, for permission to temporarily remove a fence enclosure and to pump, fill, and abandon the existing cesspool, install a septic tank, pump chamber, 4 rows of Enviro septic leaching pipe and system sand, remove the water service, and replace line and sleeve and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Good evening, Jeff. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman.
Do you have any questions before Jeff presents this project?
No, not before he presents.
Okay. Jeff?
Good evening, I'm Jeff Ryther with BSS, representing the Wareham family. This is at 78 Associates Road, sort of in the lowlands of Chappaquiddick Island. Excuse me. This is a small lot, 5,600 square feet. It faces West Falmouth Harbor. It's primarily a half sand dune. Of the 5,600 square feet, about 3,000 square feet is developed. Resource areas are the harbor, land under the ocean. We have coastal beach, coastal dune, and land subject to coastal storm flowage. We've got a V14 line here up against the A12. So primarily all the work is in the A12 except for this strip down here, the Falmouth Wetland Reg V zone. That's delineated here with a 25-foot offset from that line. So this is an old house, dates back to about 1900. Primarily, a summer residence. It's a 5-bedroom dwelling. It has a cesspool. I don't show it, but it's thought to be right outside this enclosure near where the pump chamber is. There's a clean out there, an old steel clean out, but or metal cast iron clean out rather. I spoke to Robert Wareham and he said they'd never pumped it, so that's tells you something about a summer house. Anyway, the upgrade here, usually we do these under an RDA, but being so close to the resource areas and in the Falmouth V zone, I thought it'd be best to file a notice, but there's no trees to be removed. We only want to disturb the lawn area around a couple of sides of the house. We have a septic tank here in the back, hooking into the plumbing that's in this area. Then we have a pump chamber. We're going to pump around to the front of the house where we have 4 parallel lines of this Enviro septic by Presby. It's a fairly new system on the market. There won't be a mound. It's just going to match grade. We're able to go just 3 feet above high groundwater with this type system by a Title V permit. And so it's ideal for this location. It's going to, treat the wastewater as well as, not making it so we can't get into the house, because this front yard is very, narrow, and we can't afford to put a mound out in front of the house. So this will just be matching the existing grade with about 10 inches of fill over the piping. The parking is just along the lawn here and also right over in here, so we won't be parking on this.
I'm sorry, could you say that again, Jeff?
The parking is out parallel to the road. You'll see this little cobble strip here, so there'll be parking here underneath the, or over where you see the underground wires, parallel to the street, and so we won't be parking on this field.
It doesn't, cannot park on top of this.
Well, you don't want to park on it, first of all, but there is a little existing barrier of cobbles, sort of spaced about every foot, that delineates the parking. Again, it's sort of straightforward, but, we're dealing with high groundwater, so we do have to pump up to the front yard, so. That's about it. I'll take your questions. Oh, wait, about the limit of work. The limit of work is here in yellow, right at the base of the dune. And I know we're digging very close.
Thanks, Jeff. Jen?
No question.
Courtney?
A couple of questions. In the front yard where you're proposing to put this, there's already an elevation there. It looks like it looks like somebody raised that grade for some reason already. Does that relate to an older system?
No, again, the system's on the opposite end of that. You're talking about right in here.
Actually,
It's a
all
little-
across the front of the house.
Right, it's across the whole front, but it is not a system. To be honest with you, that, years ago, 100 years ago, this was a dune. But it's half taken out by the, this dates back to the original subdivision. I saw it in a 1904 subdivision plan, so
Right.
this was here. I think it was a stable, and the main house is right here. But it's turned into a 5-bedroom house over the years. But anyhow, I don't believe there's anything underneath there. I did speak to the owners about that because I was curious. But the cesspool is right out underneath where the pump chamber is proposed.
And the location of the septic tank, I assume is governed by the plumbing that comes out from underneath the house? Is that why you've got it there as opposed to, say, over in the side yard?
Well, there's virtually no other areas. I mean, these tanks are fairly large, and I tried to pick some locations where, there's areas to place these. This area here that's enclosed, if you're thinking right there, is sort of a utility area. It has an oil tank in it. This is their heating oil. And this is a little courtyard area. It's not very large. I don't think I could squeeze 2 tanks in there. So I chose to put one back in the rear and one on the side. We tried.
I don't have a problem with it there. I just wondered, because it's so tight there, I wondered why you wouldn't put it down to the, whatever it is, where it says Ed's Lawn at the bottom.
Down here?
Yeah.
Well, to be honest with you,
Or is that a
if you
function?
notice, there's,
Oh, yes,
It
it's
says
22C.
22C, it's a different lot.
it's a different lot, and although they occupy it, and they have had occupied it for a
Oh, I
long
see,
time.
yeah. I got you.
different lot.
Yeah.
We looked into this lot here, and you don't see it very often, but it's one of those owners unknown.
Okay.
And we think
You
it's their
answered
lot,
my
but
question.
it doesn't show up in the deed as their lot, but they've been occupying it since 1900 or so, so they basically claimed it, and I think they're going to go through adverse possession, but I don't know if that's the case. This is just being discovered now about this lot, so I'm trying to keep out of that. We've also gone to the Board of Health Board of Health for a variance, and we've continued it over the water service, because right now the water service goes right through that, and they want me to figure that one out. So they want me to, give them a detail of encasing it, sleeving it and encasing it. So
This is a-
I've been continued 3 weeks at the Board of Health over the water service, which is right here, if you notice.
It's a kind of a tiptoe septic installation. that's
It's
all.
not an easy one. This is probably the toughest site I've had.
Yeah.
And I've done quite a few of these, but very tight. To come up with a system that you only need 3 feet to high groundwater was ideal for this site, because there just wasn't much room to place it here and keep out of the resource areas.
No,
And believe it or not, by Title V, we could have actually put it in the back here, but I know that you wouldn't want to dig up the dune.
You're
Because
right.
it's 50 feet from a coastal bank, but not from a dune. So you could actually place a septic in a dune under Title V.
Challenges are always fun. I have no other questions.
You can't put it in the velocity zone, though, can you?
10 for an upgrade.
If there's no other
You
alternative.
made a good decision.
Right. I think I did.
Is that it, Gordon?
Oh, by the way,
Yeah,
this
so I
house
said
is
I have
up
no further
on,
questions.
it's on locust
Challenges are
posts.
On Locust Post?
Yeah.
For most of it. There's a little bit of it in the back here that's on a wall. But that's why the Board of Health is favorable about this, because, you know, they're concerned about gases being trapped underneath buildings and crawl spaces. And although this may be a crawl space, it's very well ventilated because of the posts. So it's really a sand dune underneath the house.
Ed?
No questions.
Tom?
Interesting. This went through the 38 hurricane, and it wasn't elevated. It had nothing in it when the hurricane passed,
Yeah, maybe.
because right across the street, there's a marker above the first floor window put out by the government that marks the 38 hurricane.
You're saying on this lot?
Across the street,
Or across the street?
Yeah, that Twinkie
there's a little
Runnels
plaque from
By
the,
the tennis
Oh,
court.
yeah, I see. Yeah, this was around in,
oh yeah, this
well, it
thing's
shows
been
up in
beat
the
up.
1905 subdivision.
Yeah, this has been beat up several times.
Yeah.
Here we are, you know, I don't really have an issue. I know it's going to get parked on. You know, particularly with little trailers with sailfish and all that. I know that this whole lot is going to get covered with happiness. Doesn't bother me, because if it fails, they're going to be repairing it. Just know that.
Well,
Summertime-
maybe, I think that they are trying to delineate that with the cobbles.
They're going to try. They're going to try, but
Yeah, I hear
I'm
you.
willing to put good money on that. The other observation that I had here is we're discussing about where these tanks are being placed, and they're on that lot.
That's what I put it.
How in dickens are you going to get that 1,500-gallon concrete tank around the corner between the corner of the house and the dune? Your limit of work. How are you going to get that 1,500-pound, or 1,500-gallon?
Well, we're going to,
Make it.
by the way, right down here, there's a note. It says, remove the fence enclosure. So we plan to come right by the side of the house
With what?
With the Acme can get in
with
there.
an Acme truck.
They can get in there.
And then,
Yeah, the one that
you know,
goes-
they'll excavate the hole, and then the truck will come back and then plop it in the hole. Again, with this
Call
one,
me the
too.
day he's doing that. I want to see him do that.
They do it. It's not even a 2,000-gallon H20, and they do it.
swing the beam.
I've actually seen them lift, this is with a crane, lift it over a house.
Put a special
Put it in the back there.
condition on it.
No, I'm just curious, because it's,
And I think they can pull this one off. It's going to
Well, I'm
have to be
sure they will.
this excavation first, and then work their way out.
that's a great methodology. I'm just interested. So are we giving permission for them to use this other lot?
No.
Lot 22C?
Nope, they haven't
I
asked.
Well,
really
um,
want to know,
That's not on the table tonight.
It's not on the
Well-
table, but it's land that's,
but the
that they've
limit of work
occupied
goes through
for...
there. All right? As I read this plan, the limit of work goes through Lot 22C. And I'm looking at...
I'm not saying that it's not going to be somebody on that lot, you know, I've just...
Okay, but I'm just-
This is a parcel that's been occupied by this family for a long time, and I just want to, you know, we're not going to disturb outside of that lot, of course. The limit of the lawn, like you had mentioned, is out here.
Right.
And, you know,
Somebody's
I...
received benefit of something that they don't own, that's fine. I don't care. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just having a little bit of a hiccup that we've tripped over ourselves on other land issues on something being issued to somebody that, you know, I'm getting a little twinge in my leg about that. Because to get that truck to go around the corner of the house, even with a boom and all that, you're gonna be going across that. You're gonna be going in that area.
Well, no, I think we're going to back straight back, and then they can unload that tank. And also, it can come in halves, and they can unload it and then set it by the excavator as well.
I really wanna see this sometime. I'd like
Inform
to
your
meet
guys,
it.
I might have an audience when this is happening.
Do you have any other questions?
The local contractor's going to be doing it, so.
And they will let us know when you're going to.
And maybe I'm just a stick in the mud this time, but I just see
I know.
lot
it's-
22C. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, you shouldn't even have show silt fence there, so it isn't part of this project.
Yeah, I could probably, we could move it off and end it right here. You know, I show it here, it's, that's sort of a combination of edge of dune, edge of lawn, limit of work.
I'm just saying, technically. And the
Well,
other,
we can have that condition that limit of work is not to,
the other aspect, and I don't think we can require this, but if it is likely that this, what's in the front might be accidentally driven over, they might think of just putting a little split rail fence or something to make it obvious that no vehicles are supposed to be there. Maury?
I was just gonna say maybe put posts that you can't get a car through, but you could get your little boat trailer or your, whatever,
Something like-
windsurfer or whatever.
Curb stones.
Yeah, upright. Yeah, well, then the plow trucks and everything else, it becomes an issue out there.
Thinking about all the work that's going on out there, some of the big trucks.
But the thing about Presby, they don't make H20. If
no,
I'm
it's not a true
mistaken.
H20, but
Pardon?
it'll certainly be H10.
Yeah, but
Which you could-
it's not H20, I put Presby's in, and they're
Yeah.
good. And it's the best, it's a great system for here, because they use them up in the mountains where there's no separation of water, and they are a good choice. But I wouldn't want people driving on it, I wouldn't want, when, how tight it is there, somebody going around and, Facillo coming by with a cement truck driving over it.
Well, that's.
So I really think you need wooden posts or...
All the work that's going on out there.
Exactly, you need some kind of,
Constantly work on that.
something that they can't get over that.
But it's high enough that people can see it, too.
Right, that's what I'm saying, a post in the ground, post, wooden post or something, I don't know. But you need to figure that one out, because it's tight there for people driving around. And the reason that ground is so high, it's from all the years of the dune trying to migrate, and the lawn just keeps growing up through the dune, and it's making, and that happens in a
Yeah,
lot of places.
I think you're right, we did, just to comment on that, there's a stone bound here and here, and they're both a foot below grade, so.
The earth grows over time. One of the questions that I had about the tank, I didn't have so much problem getting in. If it's two-part, it has to be watertight, and you have to make sure it's really watertight, both of them. But you're sitting in groundwater. You're sitting right at groundwater.
Just about ground,
Yeah, so what's and I don't know if you did this perk test during, an apogee or perigee tide, or...
Well, I think it'd be best to, time it with low tide, because it does go up and down.
I'm worried about it floating. Not so much the tank, but the pump chamber,
Floating with, no, I did, I can give you a calculation on
because you don't
that.
have any concrete cover over this for weight.
Yeah, but I specified the H20 to give it extra concrete. So I can give you, this,
And this has been in front of the Board of Health,
yeah,
so the only thing they care about is the water line.
oops, excuse me a second.
They only care,
Right,
if
the
they only
water
worry
line.
about the water line, then I'm not gonna worry about it, but,
That's the weight down, and that's the weight buoyancy up.
Up.
So it's more than 2 times.
yeah, we're gonna put that in the file. But if-
Sure, you can have that.
And you submitted this to Board of Health?
Yes.
Okay. All right, other than that, and the 4 inches of loam over it, I know it's already really high there, and I do know that they're pretty Falmouth-friendly lawn out on that particular lot, so I hope they maintain that.
Right, I think I do specify restoration
4
by...
inches, but usually it's
Right.
6 to 8 with Falmouth-friendly lawn, so just make sure it's definitely Falmouth-friendly, it's no irrigation.
Well, yeah, okay. That's a typical condition.
Yeah,
I'm
I-
sorry I missed that.
Usually it's 6 to 8 over, but I don't think you can get that there, because then you won't be able to get in the house. So, I think that's it. Check from parking, floating tank. and protect that one cedar tree that's not even on your property anyway. But,
Thank you.
it would be one that,
Right, I understand.
yeah.
It's that nice tree. When I
gorgeous.
first looked at this job, I thought, oh, we can just put it right here where the cedar tree is, but then it turns out there's no way. So, because, I just don't want to
You
cite...
have to put it where that nice cedar tree.
Well, I mean, it was just the only place on the lot that was...
You were doing well, Jeff, until you said that.
Ooh, yes.
I know, but it was just like the only place I could think of to put it, and then, figure we could replant. But anyway, it
Thank God it wasn't your
turns out we're not going on that lot anyway.
With a little thought, you were able to put it in.
And not cut the tree
So
down.
you don't always have to take down the trees.
No, I don't want to take down the trees, but sometimes we have to.
Yeah. See, now you've showed your creative side.
There you go.
And they don't want any membrane around that tank?
What do you mean by that?
Well, sometimes they ask you to put the rubber membrane around the tank so that's too close
Well,
to the
we
front.
specified on the detail page that it's to be waterproof and watertight, so there's two ways to do it. You can, just like you said, put the
Yeah.
wrap on it, or you get the monolithic with the cover at the top.
Okay. All right, I'm all set, thank you.
Mike?
I'm covered, no questions.
Ted?
Fine, I think it is tricky with the truck, but you may want to bring one of the drivers down there and look at it. Those guys are artists. Those guys are really good with this.
They are really good.
I have one quick question.
You have another question? Okay.
Dewater?
What?
I think we're just about, we can do this without getting in the ground, well, it's going to be just at groundwater at low
You
tide.
have to dewater?
I don't think so. It's going to be right,
I don't think so.
well,
at low
it's
tide.
it's like,
I never liked that term when it comes to dewatering.
Well, put it in as a condition, and also that it should be done at low tide.
you never know. I mean, we try to do it at low tide in this
Low
case,
tide.
but, a truck might get delayed and here comes the
Right.
tide and...
Well,
So that's
and
why,
then you have to
that's
dewater.
why we want you to have a,
they'll have to schedule it accordingly. No
Or
delays.
postpone it.
Or postpone it, yeah.
That's true.
and have a contingency dewatering plan.
Yeah, we're not going to go on that side lot, though, are we?
You can't go on that side lot.
Well, you could
It would have to
dewater.
be, it would have to be some type of containment, in the front yard before the leach field's put in.
Just get a small dumpster.
We'll condition that that's what you have to do, but you have to be creative and come up with a solution.
Okay. That's great.
Because you didn't, you
Yes.
you dodged the tree.
It's like bailing on a rowboat.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I would like to propose along the lot line an orange construction fence for visibility, just to
Yeah, that can be a
let
condition.
them, that would be something that
I'd
I'd
like
like,
that along the dune as well.
just so that as you're backing up
Yep.
and moving equipment, it's a visual barrier.
Clear.
So the lot
Where?
line, the dune, and the cedar tree,
Yeah.
how's that?
Well, the cedar tree is not even in,
Well, that's just,
But we want to make sure the cedar trees.
thank you.
Anybody need any more information to make a decision?
Do we have a DEP number?
Well, it probably does, we had a week off, so.
Yeah,
Do you have a
there's a
DEP
DEP number on this.
I believe, did you get your DEP number,
I'm
Jeff?
looking right now. I know that we got,
Pretty sure this one has.
yeah, it's 25, 38, 33.
Yeah, DEP.
I'll move to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
25,
Second.
20, what was it?
3833? 3823.
No, 33. 25, 38, 33.
38, 33. 33. I'm dyslexic.
Any other questions? There's a motion and a second on the table. Any questions from the audience? Okay, hearing none, motion on the table is to close this hearing, take it under advisement. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved.
Thank you very much.
Continued request for hearings under a notice of intent. Paul Janke, 194 Edgewater Drive East, is continued. And since the representative is here, That's the third continuance? Thanks. Joseph and Jean McCabe, 86 Eel River Road, East Falmouth, for permission to restore the unpermitted removal of 27 trees and cutting of shrubs within resource area buffer by installing native trees and shrubs using sprout management on trees that had been cut down and the associated landscaping. Jen?
Yep, your quorum is all of you.
All of us? Okay. Hello, Mike?
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Michael Borselli from Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant. I'm joined tonight by Teresa Sprague of Blue Flax Design and Keith Johnson of Building, State and Management. And we're here tonight, continuation. We made a presentation at the last meeting about how we're proposing to restore the buffer. There was a lot of discussion, suggestions, requirements for additional information, and we are back tonight in hopes that we've answered all the questions and provided additional information. As far as the revisions to the plan, site plan, we were asked to add all of the existing trees on the property to the plan. We have done that. We have also added section of salt marsh that was not on the plan in this area. We added to the plan the original limit of work that was approved for the house construction, and that's shown on the plan. And we are proposing a permanent sort of designation for the limit of alteration or warnings along the existing buffer with cedar posts with signs that say natural buffer, no, do not disturb. And there's seven of them proposed along the edge of the existing buffer, right at the original limit of work. And we were also asked to add the existing condition landscape features on this side of the house. So we've added those details, which predominantly are lawn areas and some native plantings on this side. So all that information has been added to the plan, and Teresa has provided supplemental information. She's here to make a presentation, and Keith's also here, and then we're all available for questions.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Jen? Did you have any other questions?
Not right now.
Okay.
Good evening. I think the one other thing that we were asked, and maybe Mike said this and I missed it, was to show the edge of lawn, the existing edge of lawn. I brought some photographs this evening of the area, and so the last time we were here, we were discussing the size of the trees. We were proposing to replace 9 trees for those that were not good candidates for coppice regeneration. And we had discussed the size of those trees, and I was recommending 1.5 to 2 inch caliber trees, and the board wanted me to locate some larger size trees, which I did. One of the concerns and one of the reasons that I had recommended the 1.5 to 2 inch caliber trees was because of the density of the existing healthy native plant community. And so I just wanted to kind of walk quickly through and show you what's happening here in the site. First of all, the mulch area between the edge of lawn and the vegetated area, which is this area, it's about 186 square feet within the buffer zone, that's shown in brown, is here. And I know there were some concerns that there are some hydrangeas, and these are the little hydrangeas that are in here. So what we're proposing to do is replant this area entirely with native shrubs, including arrowwood, bayberry, and blueberry. So the hydrangeas will come out and we would plant this area in full. That's this area that runs along here. The picture on the bottom just gives an idea of the density of what's kind of regrowing in on either side of the pathway. So this is the existing pathway down to the water. You can see it's covered with moss here. And this is the vegetation on either side. So it's really grown quite thick. It's quite healthy, and it's really sort of encroaching in on the existing pathway right now. So I know one of the suggestions was to bring some larger caliber trees and just plant them right off the pathway, but this is actually where the existing healthy native vegetation is most dense. And then this just gives kind of some additional photographs of the area, so you can just get a sense of the density of what's growing in. The flags here, the orange flags, are the oak trees that were cut, that have regrown since they were cut. The blue flags are sassafras that are just coming in on their own, entirely on their own. They weren't cut, they're just part of the regeneration of the area. This stake here is just representing the area that's to be restored. So here we have that area to the right of the pathway, and then this is the area just to the left of the pathway. What I also have is, and I'd like to just pass out so you can enter it into the record, I staked where each of the trees, where I'd propose to replant trees, areas where the ground cover is not quite as dense, but just to give a sense of exactly what's happening with vegetation around that area. If I could submit these.
Thank you.
And finally, so in locating larger sized trees, the trees that I'm recommending are the 1.5 to 2 to 3 inch caliber trees. They're all at about a 36-inch root ball, and each weighs about 1,000 pounds. The pitch pines are about 8 to 10 feet tall at that size. The white oaks are 10 to 12 feet tall at that size. I was able to locate much larger trees, so I was able to locate some 6 to 8 inch caliber pitch pines. They have an 80-inch root ball, and they weigh 8,000 pounds. The 6 to 7 inch caliber red oaks also have an 80-inch root ball, weigh about 8,000 pounds. I was able to find 5 to 6 inch caliber red oak with 70-inch root balls that weigh about 6,500 pounds, and a 5 to 6 inch caliber white oaks with 65-inch root balls that weigh about 5,500 pounds. So my concern is that the amount of damage that would take place if we were to bring a tree that's 8,000 pounds into this area. As you can see, it's very tight. You can see it's tight around the corner. It would cause more damage to the buffer than I think we'd get back for the tree, so we'd have a lot of soil disturbance. We'd be removing a lot of existing vegetation to get a tree that size in. And I think that if the overall goal is to restore the ecological integrity of the area, I feel that putting trees in that size would actually do more damage than good. You would get a 20-foot tall tree at about that size, so that's what you would get. I think if the trees are allowed to continue to grow and managed at the size that we are, within 3 years, we're looking at having trees that are 15 to 18 feet tall.
But we're looking for 30 years was the testimony last time.
The 30 years would be to get a 60-foot tall oak tree. Sure, absolutely. But if we were to immediately restore these with these 6-inch caliber trees, we'd get a 20-foot tree in there, but we'd do a whole lot of damage in order to do that. If we let these trees, if we manage these trees, let them continue to grow, the trees that were cut, we're looking at 3 years to get about a 17-foot tall tree. These trees are over 6 feet tall right now, most of them.
Somebody backtrack about the trees and the root balls. Last time we were told it would take 30 years. That's for a 60-foot tree, you just said?
Well, for these trees to return to a full canopy size, the stump sprout or the coppice regeneration, for them to get back to be, and I don't know what size these trees were when they were cut.
Why don't we just look at the adjacent properties? That's probably a pretty good guess.
Right, so
on
I'm
how
guessing
they are.
about a 60-foot oak tree. And so in 30 years, we'd have a 60-foot oak tree. That's what I
Are they
think.
60 foot on either side of that property?
I don't think they're quite 60 feet,
No,
no.
they're not 60 feet.
Maybe.
It's hard to get them up over 40.
Right, but that's what we'd be looking at in 30 years for a full-size canopy tree. That's where the 30-year came
I
in.
think Courtney's question was what it would take to regrow when, to the size they were cut. I think that's what.
That was his question.
That was my question.
That
Okay.
was his question.
So then
we
there
were
was a
looking for a redwood, we're looking for
Right.
how long will it take to get the tree back to where your client decided to just clear cut the lot?
So
Not
figure
the tree,
at,
the whole area,
right,
that whole
right.
system.
So figure at, we'll be looking at an additional 10 feet of growth over the next 5 years if we get 2 feet of growth a year, which we're looking at. We've got 6-foot, 7-foot tall trees, so within the next 5 years, we're looking at 17-foot tall trees. So within 10 years, we will have those trees equal to the size of what's surrounding. That's my best guess. I mean, anything can happen in between, but I think the comment of 30 years was how long would it take to grow to a full-size oak tree? And I think 30 years was the comment on that.
No, the question was, how long would it take for this system, by somebody who's very experienced in forestry, to return to the system that was cut? And the answer was 30 years. I think we have enough information No, I'm not cutting off questions. I'm saying, I think we understand what's on the table, and then I think we have a fair amount of expertise here on the board with plants also, and we can discuss it.
I just had one quick question.
Yes.
If you flip that over to the bark mulch area?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you plant those nice big trees right in that bark mulch area instead of bayberry? They're very accessible. It's open. There's no vegetation you're going to disturb. We could actually remove some of that lawn so that we could get those big trees in there. And I looked at going down, and when you say 6,000 pounds, or you say 3 ton, an average 1-ton dump truck with a load of gravel in it is like 3 ton in it. So, you know, it makes you kind of mind boggle when you think of a 6,000 pound ball.
Well, I don't understand why we went from 1.5 inch to 2 inch to almost 8 inch caliber trees.
Right.
Why couldn't we just come up with something more in between? I mean, we know putting in a 6 to 8 inch caliber tree, we all know what the disturbance that's going to cause. I mean, it just seems like we went from one extreme to the other.
Yeah, we could have 3.5 inch or 3.5 to 4 inch.
Right. No, I
and put them all in that bark, at least put 3 or 4 in the bark mulch.
I located the trees as was asked, and there was a mention of a 6-inch caliber tree, so these were the sizes, and I checked with Arnie Johnson of Harry Johnson Tree Farm.
6 inch.
And this is the information that, this is what they have in stock, and this is what he gave me. So we know a 2-inch caliber tree's got about a 36-inch root ball, a 5-inch caliber tree has a 65-inch root ball.
Say that again?
The 2-inch caliber tree
Yeah?
have 36-inch root balls. That's what was given to me by Arnie Johnson. And then
What's a 6 inch?
the 5 to 6-inch caliber trees have 65-inch root balls.
8 inch, yes.
Yeah.
Circumference.
Diameter.
Diameter.
Yes, we've got some things to deliberate on.
Okay.
I understand, that's why I'm just providing all of the information.
8 times the volume.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Okay.
But I think that would be
My apologies if I misunderstood the question last time about the 30 years. I understood that to be, Courtney's question to be, how long will it take to get these trees back to full-size canopy trees?
No,
That's what
my question was, how long would it take to get the trees back to where they were when they were cut?
Okay, so then there may be a different answer to that.
Which you didn't give the answer.
I didn't, so
That
that's why I'm
gentleman
going to
gave
say-
the answer.
Poor Keith's on the hot seat, he gave the answer.
Yeah. But we could get a few larger trees in that bark mulch area, and we could remove some of the lawn to get them in.
Yeah, that's certainly practical. But to answer that 30-year question, that's to make it look like...
Right, that was the question, and that was your answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
That's
understand.
full
To
closure.
make it look like the adjacent properties, which I
right.
don't think are 60 feet.
No,
No.
they're 40 probably tops, as you go back from the
Yeah, I
coast.
mean,
Yeah.
just go and look at your adjacent property.
So I have a comment, and it just sort of ties back into something we heard earlier this evening, but I think all of this has to do with, I mean, we all know that stump sprouts eventually is going to grow up, but we're looking
If
to
managed
restore the
correctly.
full ecological value of this buffer area, which we could, yeah, I mean, there are certain birds that are not going to nest unless the tree is a certain height and so forth. Okay. Any questions, or shall we close and deliberate?
I'll move to close the hearing and
Close the
take it
hearing.
under advisement.
Okay?
I'll second.
Yeah, I'm not deliberating right now, but I'm just
No.
saying. Okay. Motion is to close the hearing and take it under advisement. Any further questions or comments? Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Madam Chairman, one quick question.
Yep. Are you going to give us those pictures?
I can, yes.
Thank you. New Silver Beach Association, 160 Silver Beach Avenue, 15, 17, 19 Moses Road. And I'm not going to give the map coordinates for this one.
No.
North Falmouth, for permission to conduct beach maintenance activities including grading, raking, screening, removal of debris, and associated grading and landscaping.
Yes, Madam Chairman, we continued this hearing for the issuance of the DEP number, and Mike finally got one.
Oh, okay.
And that was it.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
And he did all the things we asked him to do? Okay. Yeah, just making sure.
We had done that the previous meeting.
Oh, I wasn't here, I'm sorry.
And he located the dune that he said.
Yeah, I saw that. I didn't realize you were here last week.
All we did was we presented everything, all the changes you
that's right.
asked, and we couldn't close, we didn't have a file.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the table to close this hearing and take it under advisement. All in favor, say aye.
I missed that.
Who
I
made the
move
motion?
to close it.
Courtney, Tom. All in favor of the motion on the table, say aye. All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Courtney, Tom. Continued request to amend the existing order of conditions. Edward Gordon, 120 Racing Beach Avenue, Falmouth. Request to amend the existing order of conditions, DEP 253437, to install a 6.5-foot poured concrete retaining wall with footings, filter fabric, crushed stone steps, fill addition, to reconfigure the proposed mitigation planting area, modify the proposed screen planting area, and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
One second, Madam Chairman, sorry.
Mike, good evening again.
Good evening, my name is Mike McGrath. I'm a registered professional land surveyor and a registered professional engineer. I've worked for Holmes & McGrath. We prepared the plan and the request to amend the order. There's an existing order of conditions that is valid on this site to May 14th, 2003. And this is...
2003?
2013, right?
Yes.
Okay.
2013.
This is a permanent extension.
Yes. And what this is an amendment of that particular order. We had showed grading in this area, and what the owner would like to do, instead of putting grade, is to put basically a retaining wall so as to better contain the land. There's a cross-section of the retaining wall that's shown on the plan, and basically the retaining wall is installed into the ground, and then there's fill placed against it. There's a shelf on it so that the visual side is covered with stone, and it's only 30 inches tall here, and there is mitigation plants that were being proposed in this area. There was always work in here to remove and dispose of the plants and replant them. That was an authorized activity under that old order, and he continues to want to do that. It's slightly changed in shape. So there is a different set of stairs at this location, but the bottom line is, I look at this as a relatively innocuous change to the site. This is, since the order is still valid under the old regulations, we filed under the old regulations. This project was approved pursuant to an appeal, so there's a DEP superseding order. So this amendment's really under the bylaw, but we've asked DEP for the same approval. I don't think this is a substantial deviation. The square foot of mitigation plants is now 155 square feet, greater than what was originally proposed, and they're the same number of trees. There is a slight reduction in lawn area within the commission jurisdiction with this change. Is there any change, the other benefit of this is there's now going to be a very explicit limit of the lawn versus what was shown before. Are there any specific questions that I can answer from the commission?
I have no questions, then.
Are you going down the board?
No, I'll start with you.
Okay, I just had a question, Mike. Is this in the V zone? I'm sorry, I don't have the plan.
Where's your
I don't have a plan.
Yeah, we don't- Could you bring that closer to us, Mike?
But just point, is there a V zone then?
Yes.
You can just
Is
point.
that close?
That's closer, yeah, 1 inch, good job.
There's a V-zone here, and there's another,
The Falmouth V zone is where, in comparison to that?
there's a line right here.
Is it touching it anywhere?
No.
Okay. Second
Let
question.
me just make sure, the work limit touches it.
Okay, second question. How much fill are you bringing in to put behind that wall?
I don't know.
How much?
It looks to me 6 or 7 feet from the existing ground level.
Yes.
It's 4 feet up and another 30 some odd inches. That's-
But that was approved under the original order, that we're bringing all that fill in.
You mean it was approved to change the grading?
Yes. It was approved
And
to
now
change the
you're
grade.
just saying, instead of just having a slope,
He wants to put in a
you want
wall.
to put a little wall and retain,
Right.
It's not a little wall. How long is the wall? 200 feet? I'm sorry, I apologize, Mike, because I don't have the
I'm just
plan.
estimating.
I have my scale, you can borrow it, as long as you give it back.
Yeah, it's pretty big wall.
Well, I'm just saying, I mean, this almost
Here's the
is like a
scale.
notice. I mean, this is not a little deviation from the plan.
Then if you guys feel that it's outside of
that's
the
part of
scope,
the deliberation.
Okay.
We would.
Okay.
you can ask for a new notice.
130 feet, something like that?
132 feet.
132 feet long, okay. And how tall?
Well, what it says is, the plan shows that there's 30 inches exposed on this side, but it's actually installed 60 feet.
Okay, thank you. That's all I need to know, thank you very much.
And there's no additional fill?
No, it's,
Well, actually,
The
yeah.
minimus
will-
change.
A slope goes like this, and if they put a vertical wall at the bottom of, is it at the bottom of the slope that was
This is-
permitted?
This is existing ground,
Okay,
and that's 6.5 feet out to there.
so there'd be no fill on the backs, on the ocean side of the wall?
there's a
Yeah.
little bit to cover it up so that he doesn't need a fence or railing.
Okay, for the
So
pool,
there's a little triangular section.
okay.
That's what I wanted.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, you moved it an inch, come
Well,
on.
I realize he moved it an inch closer, but that didn't really help. So this was going to slope.
Oh, no, I don't know the other plan, so I don't know.
I have a spare one.
Oh, the old plan?
No, the new one.
No. I want to see what we permitted.
Oh, I don't have that one.
Okay,
That's a new plan. No, I don't have the old one.
okay. Thank you, Mike.
So we have
Enough information to close?
we have enough information?
Actually,
You have a question?
yeah. I take it that the indoor pool was constructed as part of the previous,
Yes, it was.
That was
That's
already-
always
Okay.
existed.
The dry well, wet well, whatever for the recharge, hasn't been installed?
No, he hasn't done, there is several things that he hasn't done yet. He hasn't really started any construction to speak of.
Gotta be dead by the time.
He hasn't started any construction, and this is going to be over in 9 months?
Yeah. There's, that's right.
Okay.
Really, you're not going to ask for an extension?
We can't ask for it,
Okay.
I believe.
Well, he
the way
didn't
your
say-
regulations say.
No,
we
I
have to
just
be
asked-
closer to the
Right.
end of the applicable period before we can ask for extension.
Yeah, I know, but that wasn't Betsy's question. You said you'll be done with the work within...
No, I-
No, I didn't. No,
I
no,
didn't
you
say
answered
that.
my question. You answered my question, Mike. Yes.
Doesn't matter. I was just curious, when I went to the site, there's a container, a storage container, steel container, 8 by 20 down there, yeah. That's in an area to be replanted. And it was a messy site. There was a lot of loose materials from whatever he was doing on the enclosed pool, and the painters were there, and there was a lot of activity with typical construction stuff. It was a messy site. And that's without the proposed addition and garage being started. And if this does have an expiration of 9 months, there's a fairly large portion of this that I'm just curious as to what it's going to look like.
Well,
My
in all honesty, there's been litigation with an abutter, so that's why, one of the major reasons there's been no effective work.
Okay.
That's been ongoing, that's still ongoing.
And they're allowed to ask for an extension.
Okay, and I would just let your client know that a messy site doesn't really give a very good impression as far as stewardship of a project. And that's, I'm being bluntly honest on walking up there, and I've been on many sites sitting on this board. And if I was the homeowner and came up on the condition of that site the day that I went, I would not be very pleased. That's it.
Does anybody have any other questions? Anybody need any more information?
We'll move to close and take it under advisement.
Second.
Okay, motion on the table to close and take it under advisement. Final questions? Questions from the audience? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Continued request for hearings under a certificate of compliance. Susan Silby and Alma Marians, 145 Old Dock Road, West Falmouth. Request to approve the rebuilt stone wall in the current size and location.
Yes, Madam Chairman. Yes, Madam Chairman, this is a request for a certificate of compliance. You heard briefly this case a few weeks ago at an open meeting, and at that time, the applicant was not allowed to, the discussion was amongst yourselves, so there was no public comment at the open meeting portion of your hearing discussion. So the applicant has requested a public hearing to provide information that this board discussed at that meeting, which concerns, I think the sticking point of the issuing compliance in this case was the stone wall that was constructed without a valid permit while the work was being done on the property. This board asked for specific information relating to the wall in regards to old permits on the wall that had if the wall had been previously permitted. You have information in your file about the old height of the wall, and you had specifically wanted to know if the wall had been enlarged. That information was relayed to the applicant, and they submitted documentation to you to try to provide evidence that the wall was, they provided photos of the wall.
They provided documentation
Yes.
to us.
Documentation to you on their case. So,
Okay.
that's all I really have to say.
Okay.
I mean, I think the only portion of the property that's not in compliance is this,
Right.
is the wall, the question is the wall.
Right. Good evening, Brian.
Good evening, Madam Chairman. For the record, my name is Brian Wall. I'm an attorney. I represent the applicants in this case. Tonight with me is Jessica Silvey, who's the daughter of Susan Silvey, one of the owners, and Tom Bunker from BSS Designs here as well. Before I get going, I have a housekeeping matter that I want to raise that in all the years before the commission, I've not raised this before, or I've never had to, but we did submit a letter about a week ago asking Maury Harlow-Hawks to recuse herself, and I was just wondering what Maury's decision is going to be on that.
Okay, well, I'll ask Maury.
I just got my packet today, and I don't think that I have any problem making a impartial decision.
Okay. I do have an extra affidavit that I'd want to put in the record to preserve my client's rights, and we have two primary concerns. One is my clients have explained that Ms. Hawks has made a number of visits to the property and appears to have taken a personal interest in this particular project, and my client has concerns about your impartiality in this case. And also, we have a second concern, is that you have personal knowledge of when the wall was actually constructed back in 1992. And I have a concern as an attorney that if there's an appeal of this particular proceeding, you know that the court looks at what the record was before the commission and is circumscribed in its review as to the record. And I'm concerned as an attorney that you may use personal knowledge to vote your vote that would not be in the record and would not be available to us or the other commissioners.
I believe that she just said she could make a fair and impartial decision based on the information that we received in this hearing.
That's fine. I'm not going to belabor the point. I would like to submit this affidavit. I have 12 copies into the record. Thank you. Okay, having said that, let me get to the merits of my presentation. This is the second request for a certificate of compliance in this particular matter for an order of conditions that was issued back in 2008, which authorized the construction of a 729 square foot addition and a walkway to attach an existing garage to a single-family home. All the blue work has been completed, and we're now seeking a request for compliance. This particular request, which is the second one, was submitted back in October of last year. We submitted it on the WPA form number 8, and we had a certification from Tom Bunker that says that all of the work has been done in substantial compliance with the approved plans. Jennifer did give us the courtesy of a phone call and said she would like to meet with us, and so we met with Jennifer on February 13th, 2012, and at that particular time, I see everyone's reading the affidavit and not listening to me. Should I?
I'm listening to you.
I can't multitask, Brian, I'm sorry.
We're listening, Brian.
I'll
We really
continue
are.
on. My wife's a school teacher, so I learned certain techniques from how she gets it.
Keep eye contact.
We'll listen to you.
Well, I should have done that at the end.
It's only natural.
On February 13th, we met with Jennifer. She told us that in her opinion as staff, that the work on the site was in substantial compliance with the approved plans, but that the commission had some concerns with this stone wall. So first of all, I believe that the only issue really that's impeding the issuance of the certificate is in fact this stone wall. She suggested that if the work was a repair, and I agree with this analysis, if the work was a repair to a pre-existing wall, then it didn't need to be part of the notice of intent, and it doesn't need to be, and it shouldn't hold up the issuance of the certificate of compliance. But if it was an expansion of an existing wall, or if the original wall was not properly permitted, then it doesn't have legal status, and then whatever was done to it would have needed a permit. So that's what we're here to talk about. Is this a repair to a pre-existing wall, or is it an expansion or construction of a new wall? So when we were told about this in the meeting, we explained to Jennifer that it's our understanding and our information, personal knowledge, that the wall was built in 1992 when the applicants were performing repairs and renovations to the property, all with proper permits to repair damage that had been done by Hurricane Bob. What happened back then was when the sand was delivered, the fill was delivered, there was a cease and desist, and Susan Silby went to the commission, and you'll hear me say this later, and asked for approval, and approval was in fact obtained in 1992 for the wall. What happened in 2009 or 8, when the new work was being done, the wall was in a state of disrepair after having been there for 20 years, and one of the contractors came to the owners and said, "We're here on the site, we noticed the rock wall needs some repair, would you like us to repair it?" And so the owner said, "Sure, go ahead and repair it." So that's what we're talking about.
Brian, I hate to interrupt, but can you backtrack, what date was that?
The date of the repair?
Yes.
Yeah, there's an affidavit in the file, but it was...
Is that Eamon's affidavit?
No, that was...
Gary Tavares.
He said 2009.
Oh, the 2009, that's what I wanted to know,
Greg
2009.
Tavares, right.
Okay, Tavares, yeah.
In 2009, was doing the work. So at the end of the meeting with Jennifer in February, after we explained how the wall had been built and what had happened in 2009, we said, we'll go put some evidence together and ask for a hearing before the commission. And so we put a letter together and we submitted it in March of 2009. And without reciting every fact in the letter, we submitted an affidavit from Susan Silby, the owner. And in a nutshell, what it says was, they've owned the property for 20 years. The house was rebuilt and landscaped in 1992 with proper permits. The stone wall was constructed in 1992 as part of that project. During the 20 years that went by, it became deteriorated and required repairs. And in 2008, the Silby family asked for permits to do some renovation and some landscaping, which this commission granted the permit. Just as I said, while the project was underway, Gary Tavares of Francisco Tavares Landscaping suggested the wall be repaired. The family authorized the repair, and he repaired the work, repaired the wall. It's our contention it's in the same location and the same size as the original wall. It does look a little different because the mason used chipped stones, I'm not exactly sure of the terminology, but shaped stones, but it's the same size and the same location. We also submitted a letter from Gary Tavares, the contractor himself, and he says in his letter, it was an existing stone wall that had obviously been there for decades. The best means of repairing it was to rebuild it from the ground up in the same exact footprint, and that in fact the wall was rebuilt. The only difference between it and the original wall was the cemented caps for safety reasons so that it could be sat on. We also submitted 4 photographs, 2 from 1993 taken by the family that plainly show the stone wall in existence, and 2 photos from 2012 taken by BSS Design that show the wall in the same location and the same height. We submitted 4 other photographs showing 2 from present day, 2 from back then, showing that the wall was 27 inches high relative to the grade in 1992 and 26 inches above grade in 2012. We submitted a copy of a 2003 plan that shows the wall, and there are survey shots on the wall that show its location and height. And we submitted a 2012 plan prepared by BSS Design. And Tom Bunker is here and can answer any questions about this particular point. But he compared the 2 plans and determined that the wall is essentially in the same location, the same height. So it's not an expansion, and so really the issue is whether it was properly permitted or not. We had thought that the evidence that we had submitted was adequate for the commission to rule on that, and the matter was in fact scheduled for a hearing on April 18th. And we were prepared to present our case on that evening. But just prior to the hearing, I think it was the day of, Jennifer gave me a call and said that there had been an issue with the notice that the commission had caused to be published in the newspaper. And as a result, we were forced to make a choice. We could either ask for a continuance of the matter so that we could be heard in public, or we could agree to go forward under a public meeting basis, which meant that we have the right to say anything. And so we came and we observed the commission, and we felt comfortable that the evidence that we had submitted was adequate for the commission to go forward. But we were not correct, because the commission took it up and, after a short discussion, decided to deny the request. Now, under your regulations, the denial is considered tentative, so it bears no weight. We're here appealing that, and it's a blank slate tonight with no deference given to the prior decision. The commission did issue a written decision on May 15th, and in that decision, it said that it had concerns with reconstruction and expansion of the stone wall, and also the commission requested documentation or evidence that the wall was properly permitted and reconstructed wall is not larger than the original wall. We appealed, and we're here tonight. And so what we submitted to you, let me just back up for 1 minute. We submitted a letter to you tonight with some new evidence. And let me say this, we obviously would know that the best evidence of the wall being permitted would be either to show you an order of conditions or a negative determination under an RDA. And I say that a negative determination because I want to just sidetrack for 1 second. The particular regulations or bylaw that was in effect in 1992 was actually the town's original bylaw. And I have some copies to submit tonight for the record. But the town enacted a bylaw in 1979. That bylaw was in effect until the town enacted a new superseding bylaw in 1993. As far as I can tell from my research at the town clerk's office, the next time it was rewritten was 1998, and I think the first time the commission enacted regulations was 1998. And Jennifer can correct me.
89.
89.
The first set of regulations.
Okay.
I thought it was 98.
I went to the town clerk, and I was told 98 when I was there. In any event, my point is very simple, that we all know that the regulations today and the bylaw today are much more involved and complex than they were back in 1979. And so this particular wall, when the applicant came before the commission seeking approval, it was considered under those rules. And that's why the evidence that we need to show you as to whether it was properly permitted was back under those particular rules. And our contention is it was done by an RDA. Now, in an effort to show you the best evidence, we actually submitted a request for public records back on March 30th to obtain all the minutes of your meetings from 1991 until 1992, so that because Jessica's mother has a recollection that she came in before the board in 1992 for an RDA, which I'll get into in a minute. And we wanted to prove to the board that that happened. Unfortunately, we never got a response to that particular request for documents. That was in anticipation of the April 18th meeting that we thought we had already submitted enough evidence. When on May 8th, the commission voted to deny the request on a tentative basis, we redoubled our efforts, and I submitted a second request for public records. I might have my dates wrong. The meeting, yeah, that's correct. After the commission voted, we now knew that we had to come up with some more evidence. And so on May 8th, I submitted a second public records request. And in that particular request, I again asked for all of the minutes from 91 and 92, and I asked for copies of all documents pertaining to 145 Old Dock Road, because during the commission's proceedings at the public meeting, Ms. McKay mentioned a couple of photographs that I didn't have from my records. And so again, I submitted that request on May 8th. The public records law requires a response within 10 days. And I did get an email from the commission staff, and they said that they were busy and they would appreciate my patience. And I said, fine, we'll wait for the response. But as this clock kept ticking towards the hearing, I saw that we were not going to get the information that we needed to give and respond to the commission's own request. So I sent a third letter on May 24th. and I again requested a response to the 2 outstanding public records requests that legally required a response within 10 days. And as I stand here today, I still haven't received a response. And so my first position is that the commission has requested us to come forward with evidence to show you that the wall was properly permitted. We have done everything we can to try to come up with that evidence, but the commission is in possession of that evidence and hasn't provided it to us. So I would think it would be unfair for the commission to deny us for not providing you a copy of a permit showing you the wall. So now we go to our next best evidence, okay? So we went back and redoubled our efforts again. And the letter that I submitted to you most recently contains an affidavit, a sworn statement from Susan Sylvia. And what she says in her affidavit is that when the wall was being built in 1992, I think it was actually, was it taken by?
No, it was
the conservation administrator came by and said, stop, you're bringing in fill, and issued a cease and desist and said you need to get approval for that. They were recommended to do an RDA. And so Susan Silby says in her sworn affidavit that she came down to Town Hall, she obtained assistance, appeared before the commission on an RDA, and received approval from the commission to build the wall. And that's a sworn statement. We also have an affidavit from Alma Marians, one of the other owners of the property. She didn't personally apply for the RDA, but she was the owner of the property at that time, and her sworn testimony corroborates everything that Susan Silby says in her affidavit. We also submitted a letter from Robert Inman, dated May 18, 2012. Mr. Inman was the contractor who built the wall in 1992. And what he says is that he was on the property when all of the renovation work was being done under the order of conditions that allowed the work to be done. And he says that he built the wall over a period of weeks in plain view and with his sign out front advertising the fact that he was building the wall. So it wasn't done at night. It was done in plain view with the commission having interest in the property because of all of the other work that was being done. And on the expansion issue, we also submitted a letter from Gary Tavares dated May 30th that says that there was a large load of stone delivered for the repair in 2009, but that only a small number of the stones were used because the way the masons work is they take stones that fit and then they take the other stones away. And that's in response to a comment that had been made that there were a lot of stones brought in and therefore the wall had to have been expanded. So this is the evidence that we submitted. And what I would like to point out to the commission is what is the burden here tonight? And in your regulations at FWR 10.03 subpart 2, it says the burden of production. What that says is that an applicant before you has the burden, and I quote, to produce at least some credible evidence from a competent source in support of a position taken. So our position tonight is that this wall was in fact approved by the commission back in 1992. We don't have the best evidence, which would be the permits, but we're not required to have the best evidence. We're required to have some credible evidence. In the law, there are various standards of proof, and I'm sure you're familiar with some of them. At a criminal trial, the Commonwealth has to prove a defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, and we lawyers consider that way up here like 99.9%. Some civil cases require what's called clear and convincing evidence, and my client's actually a law professor, so she probably knows this better than I. That's maybe around 75% or 66%. Most civil trials are decided on a burden called more probable than not, and that means 51% and you win. Some credible evidence is below these standards. It means that we have to produce to you evidence that's credible. And we have submitted sworn statements that an applicant appeared before the board in 1992 and obtained approval for the wall. We would submit that all of the evidence that we've submitted to you is satisfactory to show you that it was a repair of a wall that is now in the same size and location as it was before, and it in fact was properly permitted. We attempted to find the best evidence, but we were not successful. and we don't think the commission should be able to hold that against us. So we would ask the commission to issue a certificate of compliance for the project and allow the applicant to move on with things. And I'm available for any questions. I have Mr. Bunker here, who's available for any questions as well.
Well, I have some questions, but I'll wait and see if the board has some.
No, I have some questions and some comments.
Okay, let me ask my questions first.
Well, actually,
Was permission asked to repair the wall in 2008?
No.
This wasn't part of the
It was not
order
part-
of conditions?
No, what happened, as I said earlier, was that this was not specifically part of the order of conditions. It was not part of the notice of intent. It wasn't part of the applicant's plans to begin with. But the wall was deteriorated, and what happened was one of the contractors on site doing the work under the permit came to the owner and said, "We noticed that your rock wall is in need of repair. We're here on site, we have all of our equipment, would you like us to do the repair?" And the property owner didn't think permission was needed to repair an existing structure.
Did she look at the order of conditions, which says that anything, any activity other than that was authorized, you need to come back to ask permission? That's one of our standard
I
conditions.
know that, and I'm not denying that, but bear in mind, an applicant, the property owner does have the right to repair something. And so you could read that very literally and say anything different, or you could read it with a legal mind and say anything requiring permission, you need to come back.
Well, I could, Brian, but a stone wall, I don't think stones deteriorate. And if a stone wall needs to be repaired, I don't think you need to bring additional stone to repair that wall. That's where I'm going with this. So the activity was beyond the scope of merely repairing a wall. Material was brought onto site. You just said that.
Yeah, oh, there's no doubt. Yeah,
Okay.
no doubt, yeah. But we do believe it was a repair.
Okay.
Yes.
You don't have a written 1992 permit.
Not to give to you, no.
Do you have one?
No, no. We don't, if I had it, Betsy.
Well, you said not to give to me. That could be, I have it, and I'm not going to...
We don't have a 1992 permit, and my client diligently searched her records and was unable to come up with one. I looked at the registry, it wasn't recorded, but if it was a negative determination under an RDA, it wouldn't need to be recorded.
Yeah, I was going to say...
Did you check with DEP?
No, I did not. But I did submit 2 public records
And
requests.
I'll answer that for you,
Okay.
Brian. I'll answer the public request thing for you, but in the future, and I don't mean to cut you off, Madam Chairman, if you can't get either a timely response from us because we are backed up,
Right.
or we just don't have that information, I'm sure you know, and I'm sure Tom knows, that you can always go to DEP and do a records search, and they have those records. It might take them a while to get them as well, because I've done it myself working for private consulting firms where I've had to go to DEP and look up records, so they have those. It's an option, just throwing that out there.
There's no doubt, I believed that with my public records request, I would have received it. And just so you know, I'm not trying to disparage it. I know that your office is very busy. I'm not holding, I didn't submit.
I actually have a big stack of your stuff right behind my chair that was given to me
Good.
by Teresa to look through, and I'll specifically look for the 92 minutes and the 92. I know we're not going to have the 92
Right,
minutes.
and just to let me finish the thought, I didn't come here tonight having submitted a public records request 11 days ago and said,
No, I understand.
You don't have the records, we really were trying to find them. We submitted a request back in March. I know your office is busy. I actually wrote the follow-up letter on May 24th, and I called you too, Jennifer. I left you a voicemail, and I said, I'm looking for these records. I didn't want to throw anyone under the bus tonight. I'm just trying to be fair and honest to everyone. But my client, the commission in its written decision asked my client to produce evidence of the permit, and we made a very diligent effort by searching our own records and attempting to get them from this body, and we don't have a 1992 permit.
Okay, my thing, what work was Tavares doing on the site? Yes, you do.
I mean, just before, no, that's okay, come on up, Jessica. The issue, I think that, remember, we're here on a very fine point.
No.
The commission has issued a written decision that said, the rock wall, show us that it was properly permitted and not expanded. So how it happened, or why it happened, or what other things Tavares was doing on the site, I don't know how is relevant, but we've got nothing to hide. Why don't
No, I understand, Brian, but you submitted all the affidavits, so I'm going to ask some very serious questions about the affidavits that you submitted. And one, I want to know what Gary was doing on the site.
At the time of the repair of the wall?
Yes.
All the landscaping was being done at that time as well, there was...
Okay.
And right, I mean, he's our landscaper, and he takes care of the grounds.
Jessica.
Oh, sorry, Jessica Silby, daughter of, one of the daughters of Susan Silby.
Okay. My other question, Brian, is, again, you didn't go to DEP to look for that evidence either. And you're saying that the information that you're providing to us are the affidavits, and that they come from credible sources, correct?
Yes,
Correct.
I'm submitting
Credible sources.
sworn
And that
testimony.
the board has to decide whether or not these sources and if the information is credible, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Now, sworn affidavits. These are coming from memories of 20 years ago, over 20 years ago, and from persons that have been less than environmentally friendly to the site in the past. So, you see where I'm going?
No, I don't see where you're going at all, Jennifer. I think you're actually going down a very, very slippery slope. You've got a sworn statement in front of you
I know,
on an
have
issue.
been issued by sworn statements from you, Attorney Wall,
Right.
on other cases in the past, and those sworn statements have turned out to be untrue. So
Well-
I know it's not, you're not making the statement, but you have to look at it. You just said that these sworn statements, that the board has to weigh whether or not they come from credible sources, and that's
Right.
what I'm going for. And this, unfortunately, this property and your client have, in the past, built things on this property that weren't permitted in the past, properly permitted, mowed down a salt marsh, and told us that it didn't happen, and then we found Ken signs in there. So if you're asking us to weigh whether or not the information you provided is credible, then we have to look at the sources that information comes from.
And I don't want to get overly lawyeristic.
No, I understand
But
that.
what happens in the law is, for example, if someone were on trial and they committed what's called a prior bad act, you can't allow that act to influence the testimony that's being given. The question is whether the testimony is truthful, not whether they were a good or bad person environmentally.
I can't tell you whether the testimony is truthful.
You don't have to, Jennifer. We have to.
But what I would-
It's for us to judge whether it's credible.
That's correct. And what I would submit to the board, and I would ask you to consider this very carefully, is do you have any countervailing evidence? Do you have any evidence to suggest that what's in those affidavits is not true? And you also have, and just so I don't get boxed into a thing that says the affidavits are what I'm relying upon. I'm relying upon a mosaic of evidence. The affidavits are at the foundation to show that they came in and asked for the permission, but you've got corroborating evidence from photographs that show the wall in 1992. Let's use common sense too. There's work being done on a property in a sensitive environmental area in 1992 under an order of conditions. And we know that the conservation agent stopped the construction of the wall to tell the applicant to come before the board to do this. Mr. Inman says he's building the wall over a period of weeks with his sign out front. All of these things suggest that it was properly permitted. The commission would have stopped it, arguably, had it not been permitted.
Arguably. There's how much shoreline in this town?
100 miles.
Yeah.
Okay. Could we have Tom Bunker come up to talk about the permitted wall, the design, if there's a plan, compared to the built wall, and then compared to the repair wall? That's what I want to hear, because I'm just concerned about...
Well, again, as far as permitting,
talk about in 1992.
But there's no,
Well, there are two,
nobody has a design
there are
at
two
that time?
questions. One is whether anything was permitted in 1992. That's one question. We can discuss that one way or the other. The second question is, the wall that existed there that needed repair and the wall that now exists there, how comparable are those walls?
They're very comparable. I think you have in there, there's a plan, there's a portion of, as Brian mentioned, we surveyed the property in 2003, and again, recently, earlier this year, when we were asked for more information. If you look at the walls are drawn differently. There's like a kind of a standard way of drawing a stone wall, which is more of a field stone, sheep pasture kind of wall, which the software kind of draws it in this way. We have, on this plan from 2003, we have elevations which show both the ground elevation and the top elevation of the wall, which range from, so on the top is a 2.3, or rather 10.3, 10.5, I think there's even 10.8 regarding the elevation of the top of the wall. And in comparable locations, in 2012, the top of the wall is at 10.3. Actually, that one, the earlier one was 10.28. This one was in 10.34. So it's 0.06, 3/4 of an inch higher. But another location, we measured at 10.45, and the old wall was 10.49. So it's a half an inch. The new wall is half an inch lower. And up by where the driveway is now, in 2003, we actually had an elevation that I think is 10.87, and the elevation now is 10.55, 3/10, so it's about 4 inches lower now than it was in 2003. And as far as the location, what I was getting at is the way this was drawn with the little egg-shaped things. It's a little hard to tell exactly, but the location of the wall, I'd say in some places the new wall is, say within a few inches. In some places it's closer to the road, a few inches. In another location it's maybe closer to the house by a few inches. But it's basically, I would say it's in the same location.
And is it the same construction? Loose stone? Is it mortared?
It's not loose stone. As Brian said, it's mortared.
No,
Is it?
not mortared.
Just the cap?
Just the cap.
The cap is mortared.
It's not buttered in the back?
I frankly didn't look at it that closely to see, I didn't.
I mean, it's just, is what this is getting down to, the issue. I mean, this is getting to the point where there was a permit supposedly, which I haven't seen, but there was a permit. I doubt the permit allowed the wall to be built on town right-of-way of the road. As you can see, it's, what is it, like 90%?
The part that's in question, I'll say the permitted part, but the part that's in question now is not within, it's on private property.
Right, but I mean, if there's a permitted plan, you'd think they'd follow to that, and if there was going to be a compliance, they would say, is it here or there? It's off by quite a bit, but that's why there's a lot of discrepancies with this. I mean, I remember when this was being done in '92 too. I was driving by that corner and watching this go on, and watching the fill come in and wondering what's going on with this project as much, and I wasn't on the commission, I was on the 300 committee, but I mean, I wasn't going and talking to anybody about it, but I was, in my own head, was wondering, how is this being done? So I do remember this wall very clearly, and I imagine a lot of people in town do, because everybody goes by there. It's on the way to Chapaway Beach.
Yeah.
Not as if everybody's just trying to go by and, look at it. So I would love to see the permitted plan, and then compare it to these two, and your testimony that these two are comparable. But I would also believe
Like I said,
that...
I don't know if there's a permitted plan from '92, and we didn't do this survey until 11 years later, when we surveyed it before they started with their plans for more renovation.
So it's a matter of us, would somebody need to poke around to see if it's buttered in the back, I mean, with mortar, compared to where it was dry laid before. I mean, that's a different wall, too. Anyway, thank you for your assessment.
Brian, and I don't want to drag this on for your client, for my staff or for this board anymore. But I'll go into the archives myself tomorrow and put in 92 permit if you want. Scan it and send you a copy if you want to just delay this or continue it for 1 week. But that's up to you.
No, I don't want to continue it because I think it's gone on.
Okay, that's fine.
I appreciate that. I do want to clarify, to make sure, Mr. Durker, that we understand what we're talking about. There was renovation work being done on the property in 1992 to repair damage that had been done by Hurricane Bob. It's my understanding that that work was permitted by an order of conditions. The wall wasn't part of that permit either. And so when the fill came in and the planting bed was being built, the affidavit says that the conservation agent saw that and stopped it and said, this isn't part of your permit, you need to get approval. But because back then we were under the 1979 bylaw, the level of detail that was required for an RDA, it wasn't required back then. And the testimony in Susan Sylvie's affidavit says that she came to town hall, that she drew by hand the location of the wall and a description of what was going to be built. And that was what was approved. So there is no permit for the wall. What I believe exists...
So that should be there, the drawing.
Yes, as should the negative determination.
And she, imagine, drew it on the property line, not on the town right-of-way line.
I don't know because I haven't seen it, but what she says in her sworn statement is, I drew it out, I appeared before the board, it was done on an RDA, and it was, she didn't use these words, these are mine, because she didn't know what they meant, but a negative determination. In other words, she says that she received approval. And I'm sure some of you recall, but back then, landscape plans and RDAs, they were done by homeowners on not backs of envelopes, but hand-drawn pieces of paper.
That's a few dump trucks of soil, of fill. I mean, I saw them going in.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's much more than RDA would allow. But anyway, I mean, I'm not going to go back to be a witness of it, but I just remember it being odd. I do remember that, 92 going by that site.
In 92, I was 1 year out of law school, I was a judicial law clerk. I don't have any personal knowledge of what happened there, but I do know that the law was more rudimentary and things were not held to the standard that they are today. Remember, it was under your 1979 rules. That's what this was done under. They changed the next year. In 1993, they were beefed up when the bylaw was rewritten, but in 92, it was as if it was 79.
But you do admit that 90% of the wall's on town land, don't you? With some places 3 feet encroaching on town land.
But the repair at issue right now...
I'm just saying that the built wall was not even on the property.
Which again, I think supports my contention that it was done on a hand-drawn. Had it been a surveyed plan, it probably would have never been approved.
You can hand-draw, but if you have a straight line on a plot plan, you're going to go along on your side. I mean, I can do a hand drawing and show that this is my lot line. I'm staying on this side, though.
I don't even know it was
I mean, we'd all like to go into town land.
I don't even know if it was on a plot plan.
Okay.
I don't know. I think it was on a piece of paper that says, I want to build a wall. The fill was already there, so she was saying, I think, I want to build a wall to...
The fill wasn't already there.
The fill was there because, not on the lot, it was delivered to the lot.
Yeah.
Because the conservation agent saw the fill and said, stop what you're doing, get approval. That's what happened. So I just want to make it clear that there isn't an order of conditions, there isn't a plan other than maybe a hand-drawn plan that we can say, is it comparable or not? The question is whether it was approved.
Right.
Yes.
These are all very compelling things. I want to put in a personal thing. In 92, I did get an IDA with a hand-drawn, very rudimentary. It was my introduction into the world, that and the National Academy of Science, and requesting an IDA to remove by hand. It was very rudimentary. There was a lot different. It was not as magnified and detailed, and it was very casual.
Was it showing it on town land?
Mine? I didn't even know where the hell. I was just. It was just.
We still get hand-drawn thumbnail sketches from the Webner.
Okay, I'm not going to go into. I'm not going to go into an interpretation of town land on this either, because things happen not just on the end of Old Dock Road. So you can go down Old Barlow's Lane Road in Pecasset, and the footprint there, everybody in all the way to the water, has their fences and driveways and such on state land, because the road layout there is 120 feet, all the way to the water. So, but over the years, people, including my parents, have had occupation of land that's not their own. I don't want to do that. All I was doing was just,
Let me make a note of that.
I can, with a very strong comfort level, let you know that the process was far more simple. It wasn't as detailed. It wasn't that it wasn't regulated or that somebody didn't care. It was just a whole lot different. It didn't, I came in front of the board.
Excuse me, Chair, through you, can I ask a question?
Well,
Are we starting to deliberate?
I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah, but we're deliberating here, isn't that supposed to be the next part of the process?
That's actually...
Well, unless people have other questions.
It's not a question, I'm just trying to point out that maybe we should be reserving and have this discussion, but at the time we start to deliberate.
Right. I want to finish questions.
Right, that's what I like to do.
Courtney, do you have a question?
I do. I've been on this board for quite a while, and this property has come before this board on a number of occasions. And my memory has been refreshed by a couple of my fellow commissioners when they're discussing the issue of whether or not this wall was constructed on wholly or partly on town land. And to your point, which I would agree with, certainly how procedures went in 92 or 78 or 79 and how they go in 2012 are very different. And things were a little more loosey-goosey then. So probably, and I think historically, it's very true that people encroach on town layout, road layouts. Road layouts are 40 feet wide, the road's 20 feet wide, you got 10 feet of land between your property line and the street, and how much of that gets landscaped and mowed and all that. So, that's fine. And those things don't become problematic, except when you get to an issue like this, where a wall was constructed, and let's assume there was some form of permitting for it. I mean, I'm gonna buy that argument, okay? And probably we'll find some kind of corroborating evidence. It would be nice to have that, because I agree, as a historian, it's important to try to have corroborating information on sources, because you always have to consider the source, what the biases of the sources are, right or wrong. So any kind of corroborating evidence is important. Now, but this is a very sensitive area, and now comes a question, which has just troubled me ever since it had come up in the first place, that if in fact this wall is wholly or partly on town land, then it becomes a jurisdictional issue. And maybe, Tom, you can verify...
Courtney, we're only...
Yeah, so maybe... No, this is important.
On the part of the wall
So my question is, I can't approve this wall if it's on town land because it's outside of the scope of it. That's what it comes down to.
That wasn't a question.
But I think
That was a comment.
I can address the comment. The scope of...
I'm asking, is it on town land or not?
Part of the wall is, the repair at issue was done on private property, and the request for certificate of compliance relates to the private property only.
So we're only talking about the part of the wall that's on the private property that has to do with the certificate of compliance.
Right.
If we determine that there was no permission for a wall in 1992, then in fact, the whole wall could be removed.
We have to make that determination.
Right, but we don't have that determination at this point. That's not what we're talking about tonight. Questions, this end? Do you want to say something else?
I move to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
I'll second.
Okay. and we'll discuss this next week.
You want to take the vote?
Yes. If there are any other comments?
Are you closing this?
My client, I know that the vote, if you would indulge my client, she wants to say one other thing about, I think it's about Ted's question about the cement.
Yeah.
And this is just a copy of the bylaws, it's no new evidence, it's just your own bylaws.
Hi, for the record, I'm Jessica Silby. So when Gary Tavares was on the property and recommended the repair of the wall, it was in part because my children, who are young, climb all over the front of the wall, I should say the front of the part of the wall that faces the house. The part of the wall that I do...
That's on your property.
That's on our property, right. We have not touched the outside of the wall, which is also falling apart, but we don't touch that part. And so it was the front of, it was that part of the wall that was facing the house, and it was, when they climb on it, it comes down because they were loose stones. So Mr. Tavares said he could repair it to make it more tightly fitting, and so that it wouldn't fall, it would stop falling apart. And they started doing it, and I do believe when he started doing it, there was mortar being used, and there was a cease and desist, and I think it was from you, Ms. Harlow Hawks, that came, and we came and got the cease and I think it was Tom and Ken Kiesko and Gary Tavares came to see Jennifer about the cease and desist, and the conversation in Jennifer's office was, there can be no mortar, it can only be a repair, and that's how it proceeded. To my knowledge, that's how it proceeded. And those stones were cut, and more stone was put in because it's much more tightly fitting wall now. And I do believe there is mortar on the very top cap so that the top does not come off, because otherwise it would be loose. So that was my understanding of the impetus of it all, in part because of the climbing. And it did happen very organically. It was one of these things where, the rocks were falling down, somebody mentioned something, and then it happened. And I do understand my mother and my aunt had no consideration that it had to be requested of you. They have been before you many, many times. They're paranoid about being before you, and they ask permission now to trim trees. So I do believe it was in good faith, although that's just obviously my position. But that's the motivation of the repair, and that's why it's more tightly fitting now.
Okay, thank you.
Can I have one question?
Yeah.
You said it was your understanding that, who issued the cease and desist?
Well, there was, it is my understanding that somebody came onto the property and, it was you? Okay, well, somebody...
I am the one that sent Gary's men home.
Oh, okay, and took the pictures that we just learned about. Who took those pictures of the rocks?
I don't know.
Yes. Oh, there's...
Off the top of my head, I don't know what you're talking about. I would have to go back and
Oh,
find
okay.
it.
There's several pictures in the file of like these gigantic pile of rocks, which sent me to Mr. Tavares and said, what's that pile of rocks? And yeah.
I can't guarantee I took them. I probably did. I'm the one that went to the site and stopped Gary's men and sent them home.
Okay. So Jennifer, if you did the cease and desist, how come they had to come back to you to talk? I thought you didn't know
Because
about
I
it.
sent the men home. I did not send Gary home. Gary was not there. His men actually were sitting on their stones eating their lunch when I showed up.
Okay.
That I remember.
So am I right in my recollection that Tom came to your office with Ken?
That I don't know. I remember going to the site and sending Gary's men home, having a conversation with Mr. Tavares on my way back to the office and telling him he needed to come in and talk to me.
Okay.
After that, I most likely met with Tom and Gary. I don't know.
I remember they came because I was there when they came in.
Okay. Okay. So I just
remember going to the site.
Right, okay, well, great.
Who I meet in my office and when, it's a stream of people in and out.
Right. So I just wanted to put in the record why it was repaired and my understanding of how.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Tom, do you have a final word?
Just say that, yes, I met with Jen and Gary and someone else to discuss that, and that was, and Jen said, if it's in the same location, same footprint, same height, everything, that they could continue.
Brian, would you like a final word before we take our vote?
just when you deliberate, I think if you look at the total picture of evidence that we've submitted and the standard that we're required to meet, I would argue that the certificate should issue. And other than that, I thank everyone for their time.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if I may?
Yes. We're not deliberating now,
Okay.
but you may comment.
Thank you. If staff made mention that they're going to look for a certificate, if we close the hearing, is that certificate going to be allowed to be part of the record, as it's been mentioned in the hearing, that we're going to be looking for something for that IDA?
Once this hearing closed, this board cannot receive any more information.
So...
Okay, what I'm going to suggest then, before we close the hearing, is any old records that are discovered are part of this hearing.
Okay.
Yeah, we got that.
Okay. So if we have it, it's part of tonight.
Okay.
And I'll amend my motion accordingly.
Thank you. And whoever seconded it will
Well, I'll
amend the
amend my
second.
second.
Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table, which is to close the hearing and take it under advisement, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you.
Brian, I will look tomorrow, anything I find, I will scan and send to you. And Tom.
Now this next one's interesting. Request to extend the existing order of conditions, In Seasons Resort, Surfside, 135 Minot Road. Request to extend the existing order of conditions, DEP number 253378. Can you fill us in on this a little bit?
It's just an extension, it's for their beach nourishment and beach maintenance projects down at the in-season resorts. They are part of the beach management plan right now to receive beach nourishment through the comprehensive dredge permit.
so they
Actually, it's
need to-
going on right now.
Yeah.
It was the other day with a large audience watching the seagulls take the clams.
Yeah, that's great.
It was kind of cool.
If anybody hasn't seen that,
This is just general
they
beach
pump the
maintenance
sand out.
activity
That has
for
shelters in
them
it.
to screen their beach and grade it, pick up the trash. Nobody's listening. I feel like Brian.
Yes.
Is this the one with the wall right in front of it?
Yeah.
Yes.
And the
it's
waves are
next
just
to it.
hitting the wall?
And actually, this permit has been in existence for 5 years. They have a 3-year permit. It was extended for the Permit Extension Act. It actually expires at the end of July. So I would recommend that the board give them a 1-year extension. This is not a big project.
Well, before we do this, I have a question.
Sure.
Is this the one where there was an RDA on
For the
the
septic?
septic?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have we heard about that? Because I just read the minutes, that Susan wasn't here and the other
They are
person
working
sent me
on
the
it.
minutes.
No, the Holmes and McGrath has been in contact with me. They had one of their staff members, key staff members, that has been out unexpectedly for a week, but they wanted to assure me that they were working on it. They know they're up against a deadline with you on
Okay.
getting this done, and they extended an email that I can forward to all of you. I received it from Holmes and McGrath on Monday, letting me know that they just needed a little bit more time. We said, fine.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we were following up on that.
Yes, we are.
Cape Cod.
Okay,
I'll move for a 1-year extension.
Second.
thanks, Court. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Other business. Would you like to fill us in on?
Okay. This is on your agenda. It was for you to ratify the emergency cert that I signed last week. The certification was for the repair of the Chappie Road seawall. In the area that it is collapsing, the road is being undermined and the wall is moving. Betsy and I met with the acting town engineer, Peter McConaty, Applied Coastal and Ocean, John Ramsey from Applied Coastal and Ocean, and one of his colleagues to talk about what to do with the wall. We met back on the 20th.
2 months ago.
2 months ago.
And now it's an emergency?
Just hear me out before you comment,
It's been a year and a half.
question, anything, hear me out. There's a process to this, okay? We met with them in mid-April, I think it was April 20th. We discussed options for repairing the wall, or permitting options for repairing the wall.
And made it clear that an emergency cert was not an option.
Was not an option. We actually saved space on the May 9th agenda for the filing of a notice of intent, because not only do they need to repair the wall in the area that the road is being undermined, they need to repair the whole wall. There was a plan put in. We said, come before the May 9th agenda. We'll get you an order of conditions by May 16th. And there was some discussion between myself and Applied Coastal on whether or not Waterways would issue an emergency certification if we did not. I clarified that with Waterways the following Monday and was assured by DEP that they could issue an emergency cert even if we did not, and required a full notice of intent for the repair of the wall. That was one of the driving points of going forward under emergency.
Wait a second, make it clear that what we were told was Chapter 91 could not issue an emergency cert unless we issued one. And Jen said, I don't believe that's true. And she called the next day, and the answer is, no, that's not true.
Anyway, May 9th came and went. We did not receive a notice of intent. Obviously, you guys did not see it. Obviously, you guys did not issue an order of conditions like we said we would by the 16th to expedite this project for the town. Last week, while you were taking your Memorial Day break, an emergency certification landed on my desk. I had to respond within 24 hours. Betsy was out of town. Tom stepped in. We had a meeting the next day with Applied Coastal and Ocean. Again, the driving force of this was the Chapter 91's emergency cert. I again disagreed with Applied Coastal. But we did set very tight timelines up for the project, so if I was to approve it under an emergency, you guys would ratify it this week. The engineer had certain timelines that he had to meet, one of them being yesterday to get the bids in for the central registry to be advertised on a certain date. They needed to send a notice of intent to us by a certain date. And we decided that we were comfortable with that, timeline set up, and I was asked to sign the cert. I did. Okay? That's fine. We did it. We signed the cert. We moved on. We were going to go forward. The problem with issuing an emergency under the Wetlands Protection Act and your bylaw is the work has to be done within 30 days. We all know that going out to bid and everything, they weren't going to break ground within 30 days. So that was an issue for the certification. We signed it. It went up to DEP. DEP decided that they did not agree with my decision to sign the cert and revoked it. So at this point, the emergency certification that I signed last week on behalf of the board was revoked. They will be coming back before us for an emergency certification when the DEP's concern is that they can't get the work done in the tight time frame of 30 days. So that what they've asked the town to do in this brief correspondence that I got very late today was to reapply for the emergency cert closer to when they're going to do the work, and to take a big portion of that, let me say that, to apply at a time when they're basically almost ready to do the work, so that the work can be done and completed within 30 days, and to also lessen the scope of the project so that it is only, construction is only what's necessary to abate the emergency.
Why don't they just file a notice of intent?
That's what we're going to do.
Yeah, and when I came in, and we were talking about this, we, in discussions about the emergency certification, I came in loaded for bear because I really had a chip on my shoulder. I wasn't totally convinced, talking with the administrator about the process. But the more, with her discussions with the conduit, the communication was horrendous. And that was brought to Peter and the engineer and all that. Bringing everybody up to speed. What I deemed a way to facilitate a notice of intent for the entire project was to issue the certification, the emergency certification, which is only for a certain portion, that's it. In that was described sheet piling and repair of a certain portion. The rest of it would have to be within X amount of days.
Yeah.
A full notice had to come in front of the board, including what work would be done on the emergency certification portion. The thing is, Peter, the town engineer, for him to go to the register to get funding to this, that, and the other, there was no way, I don't know why this emergency cert even exists, because if it's in a municipal application,
Nothing's gonna get done in
nothing
30
goes
days.
fast enough, and we all knew that, and it was one of the ways, but it was a way to engage, is the catch-22, it was a way to engage.
Start the ball rolling.
It was a way to engage the full notice of intent for everything.
The ball could have been rolling
It
2
could
years
have,
ago. Months ago.
They could have done that, there wasn't appropriations in town, from town meeting to do certain things, the funding wasn't always there.
I
He's been
thought they
juggling.
voted on town meeting to
There
do
was,
it.
Jen, can you just explain what Jen issues emergency certs
All the time.
occasionally. Can you explain what's required to issue an emergency cert?
When an emergency cert is issued, the work needs to be, is to basically abate an issue that's a threat to public health and safety.
That's happened, and it's
Yeah,
given
so
within a day or two after the
Happened.
actions happened.
And a great example of that is
The bike path,
Bike path
Shining
sewer.
Sea sewer line.
Now, when I issue an emergency cert on your behalf and you file it the next week when you sign everything, there's required to file with you within 30 days for the repair work, and actually, the work is required to be completed within 30 days, and within 21 days, they are required to file a notice of intent with you to complete the work. In this case, it's twofold why DEP revoked the emergency cert. One is because the work cannot be even started within 30 days. So in this document, they have asked the town, it's basically, the department would advise the town and the Conservation Commission to reissue the emergency cert at a time when the above-described limited work is ready to commence. Please be advised that the work is not to be permitted to exceed 30 days, and the department also recommends that if the town were to pursue the reconstruction of the stone revetment in front of the seawall, then a notice of intent to be filed. So like I said, it's twofold. They are concerned with the timeline that was proposed by the town in the emergency cert, and they're also proposed that the scope of work proposed exceeds what's necessary to abate the safety issue. That's all. So what this board is to expect is in July, Peter McConaughey has gone forward, he's in the register, it's going to go out to bid, he's going to get his bids, and when they're ready to come before you, we will see another emergency cert. In the meantime, I'm hoping to get the town's consultant, which is Applied Coastal, to file a full-fledged notice of intent.
Who is Applied Coastal now?
Applied Coastal Engineering is out of Mashpee, that's John Ramsey's group.
So he's like a subcontractor for the town to do this?
He's actually the consultant on the town in this project. This project was too big for the town to do the engineering work and permitting work on.
Okay.
Okay.
I just didn't know.
The town just didn't feel that they had the necessary resources to look at this wall and know exactly what was going on out there.
Well, it's unfortunate because, maybe they need that little thing on their refrigerator that says, due to your lack of poor planning doesn't constitute an emergency
But
on my
anyway,
behalf.
we're moving forward. I've talked to Peter, he's going to talk to Applied Coastal. Hopefully we'll get a notice of intent filed with the board on the repairs, not only the...
Emergency section of
Mike
it.
looks horrified.
No.
Oh, okay. The portion of the wall that is in need of repair, but also the entire wall. And it involves Tom, help me out on this, the driving sheet piling in front of the existing stone wall, removal of that stone wall, and then rebuilding a stone revetment along that entire wall.
Because that's a three-part project there.
DEP, the timeline the engineer gave was just over 11 days for the section of repair.
Of the big hole.
Of the big hole. And part of it was getting the beach people involved if they had the stage at the corner of the beach parking lot, private land, it doesn't,
One
it
of the
just didn't
issues
get
of
simple,
flatland is
right?
They're gonna,
So-
The land that the wall is on.
they're
gonna do
the
that
beach
in
is on, is
July?
not owned
Well,
by the town of Falmouth.
They may not have to, they're not gonna be able to do, now, what DEP, when I read that document this evening, they're not gonna do the face and the repair of certain things, they're gonna take the debris away, but the emergency cert will only be for doing the sheet piling, and that's the extent of it, in the notice of intent.
Just to stabilize it
Just to
until the
stabilize it, and
NOI is-
then the notice of intent is what would be
Yes.
the next portion of it.
And into-
It's scaling back, so the timeline on that, I would say, would be more or less a strong week of
I've
interruption on
advised
that.
you to keep moving forward.
Yeah,
He's
but they're not
going
gonna be able to do until after
keep
the
moving
season.
forward with the bid
No, they could do
process.
that in season. They could drive the sheet pile inside that.
No, they could do the sheet piling, but they can't.
Guys,
The rest of it, they don't have a notice.
Okay, so that's what we're doing.
They need a notice.
Just to be,
Can I be excused?
with all due respect, to let you know,
I just want to
came
be
into the office very late. Mike Coastal hasn't even seen it yet. Okay, this came in at like 4:30 this afternoon. It was faxed to the town and emailed to me.
Okay, and we're gonna,
Okay, I'm just giving you a discuss, it was
So-
on your agenda and I wanted to.
And we're gonna get to know it.
Just give you an update of what happened.
Thank you.
So now you can.
On that, I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
This is the repair?